Behavior.
Where's the front of the,
What?
front of the thing? Where's the front of it? The agenda, where's the first page?
I don't have everything like that. Isn't it?
All set.
Okay, welcome back to the December 5th, 2018 Board of Selectmen Sewer Commissioners meeting. We were just an executive session, we're back to open session. First item on the agenda is roll call, everybody's present. Public comment. Hearing none. Review and vote to approve warrants.
Make a motion to approve the payable warrant for the town FY 2019-23.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next item is
7:15.
Jack's public hearings.
I'd like to wait until Ronnie gets here.
Okay. Business, new business.
Mr. Chairman, maybe we could bring Colleen Abrams forward?
Oh, okay, yes, I forgot about that, yep. Colleen, and so that's, consider signing MESA form as the landowner for Pleasant Street project. Is that right?
Yes, please.
Okay. Go ahead, tell us what you have.
So this is the Pleasant Street addition to the Mass Central Rail Trail, which we've discussed over the last couple of years and which we received the grant for, which you have written the support letter for that grant. And now we're ready to proceed. We've been through the Conservation Commission request for determination with a negative determination in approval of the work to be done on the Pleasant Street section of the Mass Central Rail Trail, the new construction, as well as the repair soon to begin on the existing section of the trail in West Boylston. I did talk to Rutland today. But this is in West Boylston, and primarily from where the big washout, beaver washout was, I don't know, was it 10 years ago, sometime back up and under I-190 is where we'll do a number of repairs and improvements, again, which we've already discussed, but just to let you know and people in general know that there will be a period of construction and repair there, primarily drainage work that will be taking place through December, depending on weather and conditions, and we'll balance that out. We may finish it up in the spring to make sure the surface conditions on the trail are what we would like. But they're going to do most of the drainage work, hopefully in December. So if you see people blocking the trail, it's wonderful to let them do their work. But so far, so good. So this is Pleasant Street, and because there is wood turtle, there is a special habitat under the natural habit. Let me get this right. It's the Fish and Wildlife, NHESP, which is right here in front of me, so I should be able to read it. Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Act. So because of the wood turtle, they have to do a review to make sure that whatever we do in construction does not endanger the wood turtle. And this is the MESA form, which needs to be signed both by the landowner and by Wachusett Greenways doing the work. So we're asking for your signature on this form, which we would submit as soon as tomorrow if you're ready to sign it. And I have 3 copies, so I'm hoping that you will sign all 3, one for Fish and Wildlife, one for Greenways, one for the town of West Boylston, just to have in your records.
Anita, anything to add to that, or that's all right that we?
No, I mean, it's just a formality. You know, it's similar to going through necessary process with Conservation Commission. And so I would urge the board to vote to authorize the chair to sign.
Make a motion to approve chair to sign the form.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Now, this whole project, no money from the town on this. This is all being done by grants. It's not, you're not gonna come to us and say, we need 10 grand.
There's no Halloween, not Thanksgiving.
No.
It's Halloween, no surprise.
No surprise.
No, the only thing that monetarily that we anticipate asking you in the next immediate future is your annual operations support, which we're asking all 8 towns for.
Just in regards to this project,
It's in your system, but it has
nothing.
nothing to do with this project. And
Okay.
we will, just, if you're asking me, I'm going to tell you that's what's coming up. But that's it, and that's a very modest sum. Let me just show you the one signing place, and then I will go away and leave one copy with Anita and Nancy. It's just here wherever it says landowner, so it's the second page. Yep, that's exactly right, first line. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Jackie, you all set?
Okay.
Okay, so meeting with cemetery trustee regarding DCR feedback on Gabasini land. Who has this information?
You want me to lead into it?
Yes, please.
Okay, so the board has set up a subgroup of members to meet with the cemetery board about this concept of finding additional cemetery land for the town. And the RFP resulted in having the determination be that the Gambasini property was the best property to try to move ahead with acquisition for additional cemetery land. It had been recommended to us by Vin Vignali of the planning board that we should double-check with DCR to see if there was any necessary waiver needed in order to use the property for the proposed use of cemetery purposes. We did file a letter to DCR that was back in September, and the response we received back at the time was, well, yes, we do have jurisdiction here, and, you know, these are the areas of our jurisdiction, and if you intend to do anything, you'll likely require a waiver. So I did speak to John Scannell about this, and he suggested that what we do is that we submit a letter asking for an informal opinion from DCR in terms of if we applied for a waiver, would we likely be provided one? And so we did send a letter in to DCR, and we received a letter back dated November 21st, which I believe you've all seen at this point, that basically says that no matter what we intend to do, it's going to be impacting the areas of their jurisdiction, and we absolutely would have to, we'd have to provide a application for a waiver. The letter did not give any indication as to whether a waiver would likely be provided. That would be, that cannot be determined until we would be providing them detailed engineering work that would be submitted with the application for the waiver. So really what we're looking for tonight is to have a discussion about, is it worthwhile continuing with consideration of this, with this particular parcel? Is it worth spending monies in getting the engineering work done that would be necessary to submit an application for the waiver to DCR?
I guess, and on our side, we voted at a meeting yesterday, come before you tonight and probably tell you that we would like to see if we could get Senator Chandler and Representative O'Day on our side. The only open land that there is in town, they own. It's pretty hard to find open land that they don't own, or they don't have a hold on it. So here we are, and I'll turn it over to Ron because he's done most of the footwork on this project.
Well, for 3 years, the cemetery board has sought private landowners to come forward with a minimum 15-acre parcel so we could have a new cemetery location. As you know, Mount Vernon is rapidly filling to capacity. We now figure at best 4 more years, quite possibly less if there's a run on the final remaining lots. In 4 years' time, we've had 4 property owners come forward. The first owned a piece of property next to Truckbrook Reservation, already under DCR restrictions. He sold the restrictions, he accepted the restrictions in lieu of money, not a site we would want to consider. The second site was the side of a steep hill with a swamp at the bottom. Not a viable solution for a new cemetery location. The third site was essentially a 4-acre pasture surrounded by wetlands. Again, not a viable site. We don't want to bury people in wet ground, and nor do we want to take on a DCR with that piece of property. The only viable piece of property that's come along in 3 years is the Gambasini property. We walked it last summer, you all saw it. It's virtually ideal for a cemetery. Since then, we've, with Anita's help, we had the PW backhoe go in. Under my supervision, we spent a day there, and we dug 11 holes, different sections of the property, to satisfy ourselves that we wouldn't hit bedrock or wetness. And all 11 holes passed the test. It's an ideal setting for a cemetery, in my opinion. It's the best I think we're going to find. There is no plan B. There is no alternative on the table if this one falls through. So on behalf of the cemetery board, I strongly urge the selectmen to make this a priority because time is running short. We're going to need time once we were to acquire a piece of land to develop it, to clear it, to design it, make it ready for burials. If we don't, we're in violation of state law. Not sure what that implies, but I can hazard a guess that it's implicit in our original town charter that we provide burial space for our residents. The state could deny us any further aid until we comply. But worse yet, lifelong residents of this town, if they can't be buried in this town, will be hard-pressed to find another location, because virtually every community has a regulation like ours that states that you must be or have been a resident of this town to be buried here. So I'm trying to impress upon you the gravity of this situation. Time is running out. Not only that, but I'd strongly urge us to bypass the DCR entirely. They have no regard for us as a town, our needs, or our welfare. They're strictly focused on water. And they flout, to me, I'm furious at the fact that they do not abide by their own Cohen bill that they throw at us at every turn. They just paved a parking lot and a roadway within a stone's throw of the shores of the reservoir, something we would never be allowed to do. And several years ago, they built a boathouse within 75 feet of the shores of the reservoir. And yet they don't want to allow us a paved roadway where there's been a gravel driveway for 70 years next to what they call a pond, which is essentially a puddle. It is not a natural occurring pond. It was a hole dug out by the town as a temporary hold of rainwater to drain the streets. It then flows under Maple Street and continues on, eventually to Gates Brook, adjacent to Worcester Street. There'd be virtually no impact on their water quality if we had a paved roadway going into the Gambasini property. Much less impact than that parking lot roadway they just put in next to the reservoir. I think if we were to spend the money on an engineering study that they are demanding, if we applied to them for variance, they're still going to deny us. I say, let's
Get a representative.
Let's assemble every gun we have at our disposal. Let's get Senator Chandler, Representative O'Day, and even the governor's office. Let them provide us with a chance to make our argument that we as a town need a cemetery. There's only one option. We have to have this option. It has to take place. Unless at the 11th hour, another property magically comes to us, that's not going to happen. We're gonna find ourselves, if we keep tabling this, without a new location in time to bury our town's dead.
So we need approval for them to, for what?
Not too many years ago, and Anita can confirm this, the water department sidestepped the DCR entirely when they wanted to drill a new well in Pleasant Valley near the original well. They were denied by the DCR. They solicited Senator Chandler's and Representative O'Day's help. She went to the State House, filed special legislation to go over the DCR's helmet, and now they have their new well. We can do the same with this. I think our argument is at least as strong, because we need a new cemetery, and we have no other options.
So I might have missed it. What do we need them to give us approval for?
We would be looking
For the
for our
roadway.
legislators to help us file special legislation allowing us to, basically, it opens the door for this collaboration with DCR, kind of forces DCR's hands to allow us to have this use on the site.
The roadway off the Main Street?
As a member of the Conservation Board, anything we do in town is gonna require DCR approval. So what they're saying is, there could be an issue with the property, they won't give an opinion of it until we actually get the engineered plans.
The
So,
main issue being that the roadway in that we want,
right,
Off
the
of
one
Maple.
off Maple Street, and even the roadway of Pierce Street as an alternative, are both
Goes
in
by
the
the
primary
pond.
zone, as they say,
yeah.
within 200 feet of that puddle, man-made puddle.
So do we have,
They don't have a problem, I don't believe, with us having a cemetery on the Camby Road.
but they have a problem with how we drive into it. So we need to get that approved before we can even consider this property.
Correct. And I don't think going the DCR's path is going to help us. I think we're
So-
going to spend a lot of money needlessly and still get denied.
The problem is if we go to the state and say, we want to build a cemetery here, the DCR won't let us, how do you know that? Oh, we don't. We didn't apply to the DCR, we think they're not going to let us. That's the problem. And
Yeah.
I'm going to speak for the whole board here. Nobody's tabling this issue. We all understand the magnitude of it, which is why we've been working diligently on this for a year and a half. This is the DCR that put a roadblock in what was our plan. Nobody on this board is sitting here saying, oh, we can push this off to the future.
I didn't mean to
I
suggest
know you didn't,
that.
but I just want to, and I'm not saying that to you, I'm saying that more for the public, to let the public know that we all understand the gravity of this situation. I agree 100% the DCR is going to say no. My question is, if we start down the road now of not getting the engineering stuff done and having the no from the DCR, are we going to get, and this is an open question for anybody that wants to opine, are we going to get our legislators to be able to get that bill through when we don't actually have a denial?
So, but we do have an informal decision on that issue. So they do
We
this,
we have a, you have to get our approval. It doesn't say, we're not giving you our approval, it just says, and then we sent a second letter, and they said, oh, no, you'll definitely have to get our approval.
so what are we looking for engineering study? How much money
That's
it
what I
might
was
cost
asking,
us?
Don't know.
Who knows?
What kind of engineering studies they are looking for?
It's a little vague in the paperwork.
It is, I honestly think that we would need to contact some engineering firms that have experience in working in this type of thing and have them help us understand what the scope of work would be for this engineering product.
Is it only for the road or is it for the entire site? If it is entire site, you know what they are looking for.
They want to know exactly where we're going to put graves, exactly what we plan to do
It's a
with the
full-
site.
full
So I'm
engineering.
assuming that includes
Yeah,
a
but
map showing what we plan to do.
again, that's going to be like a 20-acre lot. So if you want to do individual mapping of individual graves, that's going to be a lot of work, right?
Basically, what we want is, we want to bring it in, we want to have one main road, and all the lots will come off of that. But we can't draw a map because, we don't even,
We don't need it.
we haven't seen the meets and bounds of the lot yet. I mean,
Can we perhaps get an estimate from an engineering company to say, This is an estimate of what this will cost, and if that estimate comes in at $100,000, just making up a number, then we can go to the legislature and say, the DCR is asking us to spend $100,000 before they'll even offer an opinion, we're not gonna do that. I think that would be,
We can ask an engineering firm if they'd be willing to give us a free estimate like that.
I agree about that, I think that's a good
And-
idea.
It's gonna be more than, it's gonna be a lot of money.
you know, the higher the better as far as going to get approval of this project, because we can't start spending town people's money when we know, based on the history you've had with the DCR, the answer is going to be no.
Yeah.
I mean, if I want to ride my bike across the land, they'll say no. That's the way they operate.
Or can we get a clarification from the DCR, what kind of engineering they are looking for?
They want
Is it an entire site or just for the main road?
I'll be glad to call John Scannell again
Yeah.
and have a more conversation, but I do think that, I agree with Pat's approach, that if we could attempt to work with an engineering company that has done work similar to this in the past, who has a sense of what the DCR is looking for, and give us some degree of an estimate, then at least we would have ammunition to go and,
I think it'll be a huge, huge money, because it's going to be a 20-acre lot.
But we have to start somewhere.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, and I don't have any problem. I think we should definitely, right now, get Senator Chandler and Representative O'Day involved.
Yes.
I don't think we're not, we need to get them involved. Because this is going to,
But
this
do we
price is gonna,
wait, like Patrick is suggesting, do we wait until we hear what the engineering costs are going to be, to use that as an argument to bypass the DCR altogether?
I don't
I don't think so.
Representative O'Day and Senator Chandler, that's what they're there for.
That's right.
They're there, I mean, I don't care what stage we're at. We're looking to do something with the state, we need them to be on board right
They
away.
probably, I mean, it's not gonna, if they're agreeable, it's not an overnight process on their part. They're gonna have to get the ball rolling on their end to get the legislation forward. We can say, oh, by the way, here's the cost, I would assume, long before they need it, to make their argument on.
So can we schedule a meeting with our state rep and state senator sooner than later, sit down with them, present them with our arguments, with the whole scenario? I think any prudent, reasonable person is going to see that we're in a bind as a town, and that we're being stopped from doing something that has such little, if any, impact, significant impact at all on their water.
I mean,
Do you want the subcommittee to meet with Senator Chandler and Representative
I think it's
O'Day?
probably the best way to do it.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll try to set something up and we'll talk.
We meaning, you're gonna try to set it up?
Yeah, myself and, yeah.
I'll be glad to kind of play lead in terms of contacting Senator Chandler and Representative O'Day, get that started, see what times might be available, then I'll contact the members of the subcommittee, meaning the cemetery board and Chris and John, it was.
we've been in contact with them before, so they know that we have a problem. This is just, maybe they can help us with this particular little one.
Little one, yeah, it's not little.
They might have some new knowledge or
Yes.
something that they can share with us to
Yes.
push this quicker.
Yes.
Okay, that's where we stand.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Public hearing.
It's, we got one more, do we have anything else? No. No, we're not gonna.
You have public hearing?
I know, we've got another minute to go, but, yeah, I guess, I guess we can do the public hearing.
Notice is hereby given that the West Boylston Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, December 5th, 2018 at 7:15 PM in the Selectmen's Meeting Room of the Municipal Office located in 140 Worcester Street, West Boylston, Mass. In conformity with the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 56, for the purpose of holding a tax classifications hearing so as to establish the local property tax rate or rates to be assessed to each of the following classes of property for the fiscal year 2019. The period from July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2019. Residential property, open space property, commercial property, and industrial property. All interested person groups and agencies are invited to attend and participate.
Okay, Anita?
So we have Assessor Diane Peterson here this evening. And we also have Mike Saltzman, who is a new member of the RRG team.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice picture.
So, in the classification hearing, we are here to discuss the levy and the tax rate, proposed tax rate for the coming year, and talk about what changes happened over the course of the year with valuations and budgets. So in the first, we're actually on the second page. So the tax levy is the amount of the property taxes to be raised. So the total amount of the approved budget, less the revenues from all the sources of motor vehicle, municipal fees, and state aid is the amount raised. So West Boylston is going to be raising a property tax of $17,935,095, which is an increase of $923,102 over the prior year. So following along that, you have information provided to you about the levy ceiling. And based on the total town valuation of $951,463,884, the town cannot levy taxes in excess of $23 million and change. So the new growth this year was $283,584. And there is another chart in the back of your book showing the difference, I'm sorry, in the next page, showing the difference between the, wrong page. I guess it's in the back of, the whole back of the, I'm sorry. No, I guess I don't have last year's number there. So the levy limit, West Boylston has a debt exclusion of $618,561, which makes the maximum allowable levy at $17,939,662. Based on all of the accountant's numbers, we are ending up with excess levy capacity of $4,567.78. So the valuations this year did increase on average about 6%. Overall, there were some that were higher than that, some classes of property that were higher than that. But overall, that was the average. I did provide you with an options table, just so you had an idea of, based on the commercial value. Commercial industrial properties did not increase at all. The only increase in the class was based on property that changed, which caused the increase. But there was no market increase in the commercial industrial properties this year. It was just the residential and condominium class properties that had market increases. So I did provide an option table, so you could take a look at it. If you were interested in shifting 10%, a 10% shift would lower the proposed tax rate from 1885 to 1881, making the commercial industrial personal property rate 1904. Even shifting that small amount would reduce the average single-family tax bill increase. The average increase is $305, so it would reduce that increase by $12, but it would increase the commercial by $154.
Okay, do you have anything else, or do you have anything else to add?
I can keep talking.
Oh, if there's anything else you need to tell us in regards to it.
So the proposed, the average increase, the average single-family home valuation went from $289,000 to $303,000 with an average increase tax bill of $305. The condominiums went from $234,000 to $241,000 with an average tax bill increase of $172. So there's some options. I provided with a copy of the recap sheet. There were some, again, when you levy almost $1 million from the prior year, even with an increase in valuations, you're likely to get a tax rate increase. So there were a few differences from last year's amount of revenues to this year's revenues. So you'll be able to make some of that up next year when you enter into having your senior center debt on the tax rate. And the rest is there for your information. Provided some general information about the residential property taxes with the increases in the surrounding districts, and provided you also, of course, the rate that I'm discussing tonight or presenting tonight of $18.85 over last year's rate of $18.72 is pending, because it usually takes about a week for the Department of Revenue to approve that after looking at all the documents that we've submitted. But you do have the fiscal year 19 tax brochure, assuming we are getting approved, and the 2018, just as a glance so that you can compare the budget numbers and the percentages between departments and what the general taxpayer is paying per department, per dollar on their tax bill. It's telling a little bit.
Anybody have any questions? Raj?
So the tax rates, under the tax rates, average commercial and industrial last year was 815, 250. Now it's 813, 825. It's a decrease.
So there were some adjustments made to some buildings. So those weren't, it wasn't a valuation adjustment per se for a market value, but for adjustments maybe to condition of a property or a demolition. There was a demolition, I know, of one building that came off the tax rolls that was considered commercial.
But in an average of single-family homes, like a $20,000 increase?
Okay.
I think we've always kept a one single rate, and it's proved with the town, with the amount of business we just brought in this year alone, that it works, to keep a one single tax. I think it's a big thing for people coming into town, they know they have, businesses have one tax rate, so I would definitely be in favor of just keeping a single tax rate.
Yeah, I agree with that.
As well.
Yeah, yours.
My question, Anita, do you, one of our goals was to try to limit the growth of the taxes in town in general. In your preliminary budgets, do you need the full 2.5 levy that this 1885 is raising? Have you looked at, are you at that point yet?
Talking about the FY '20, no, we are not at that point yet, sorry.
So we have to set the rate before we're at that point. I mean, I guess, the only thing I can say is every other town went down, of the 4 towns that we've went down over the last 3 years, really, I think. Went down, went up, went down, they all went down from 18 to 19. We went down from 17 to 18, we went down 8 cents. I don't know, I
But
just
you can't look at the rate itself.
look at
You have to look at the rate times the value of the houses. If the town's valuation went up 10%, yeah, the tax rate may go down, but the taxes are still gonna go up. So if you looked at the increase in taxes in each of these towns, I'd be willing to bet that each one of them went up 2.5% over the year before, and you can't just look at what is the rate. You have to look at it as a two-factor equation. The rate by itself doesn't mean a thing.
Well, then we need to get that information out, because everybody looks at just the rate.
And they're
I
incorrect.
know they are, but that's what people look at, and we're talking sterling. I mean, I don't know how much they value their houses, it's $1.60, $1.50 per thousand. I know what you're saying, but we need to get that number, and we need to tell the people, what that means, because right now, they're just gonna look at the 1885.
Right. So if they usually, they call or they come in and they want to know what their new value is. So they look at the equity that they've built in their property, and we're still in an increasing market, and West Boylston was higher than the surrounding communities. There were a lot of bidding wars on the properties in this town. People find this a very desirable place to live. And your school system is something that is a driver when people come in and talk to us about why they came here and from what communities. Some of them just from the neighboring communities, and they know they're paying a higher rate, but the school system is excellent. So I think you'd find in some of the surrounding communities, even though those tax rates went down, like you said, the tax bills are still going up. So in
Well,
the
can we-
three communities that I serve, all of the, other than this one, the tax rate went down, but the average bill was still about $300 increase.
I think we need to make a flyer that says that.
We're
I mean, I
putting
think-
together, we have talking points bulletins in all the communities, so we tried a different version with Anita, and so I'll add something to that this year that we use in other towns.
Maybe if we can get that here, or we can do something for public access.
Well, we've been talking about this at our finance team meetings, recognizing that we need to get the message out to people. People had concerns last year. We recognize they'd have additional concerns this year. So we will be putting together flyers that will be, we had talked about potentially sending it out with tax bills, but the cost was prohibitive. So we will find other ways to make sure that this flyer and this information gets out to people.
And this 300 average tax bill is before we add the senior center to it, correct?
Right, but
Before
next
the
year is.
permanent borrowing.
Yeah,
Before the-
but next year is another year, so it
Right.
would be a whole different group of numbers and, so, and there'll be challenges, but you have to look at that, what the bill's gonna look like for the people, and we've been discussing that for the coming year as we start the budget
This
process.
does include the senior center debt. It's just, it's a ban payment, not borrowing.
It's not the permanent borrowing, correct?
So,
It's already in there.
it is, but it isn't.
Could be a little higher.
So, if I may, I'll just kind of
Yeah.
explain to the public. When you're building a project, you get a bond anticipation note. You borrow money from the state. The only payment that you're required to make on that bond anticipation note is the interest payment at the end of the bond. Traditionally, we've made an interest and principal payment if we've rolled that band over. Once you do the public borrowing, you're still paying the interest, but now you have to, usually we do 20 years. Now you have to pay the principal over the life of that 20 years. So while the debt for the senior center is in this tax rate, it's the, I believe, is it just the interest that we're paying this year, or is that, do you not know that off the top of your head?
There may be one partial, one principal payment at the end, I cannot recall.
So, but the debt is in there, but the amount of debt service on that debt will probably be higher next year once we do the 20-year borrowing, for two reasons. One, you gotta pay the principal back, and two, the bond anticipation notes right now are somewhere around 1.5% to 2%, whereas the going rate is probably more like 4%. So the amount of interest we're gonna be paying on that debt is going to go up as well. So I just want the public to know that.
Sure.
I get asked a couple of times, what do you consider your average house? I mean, I know you've got the average at 303. Can you help the public to understand?
So it's, the only thing included in that number to get an average are just single-family homes. It doesn't mean that there's no two families, no three families, no mixed-use properties that may have a single-family home with some commercial operation on the property. So we just use that average number so that we're always measuring that same group of properties. So it's your class 101, that is single-family homes under the Department of Revenue,
And what's the value?
which is the largest.
What's the value of the average?
She said it went up.
Increased to 303.
303, I believe.
289 to 303.
So it's 303?
Yeah,
Yeah, it was 289, I think.
right, it was 289, 955 to
289, okay.
303, 576.
So maybe when we put that, those talking points in regards to, can we get to the point where, okay, 2,500 square foot Cape in Sterling, this is the tax bill, and then, you know, just comparing it to houses, so people see not just an average dollar amount, because the dollar amount might be for a bigger house in another
Okay.
town.
So
I don't know if you can do it that way.
I can do it that way, if you want me to. So when you're talking in terms of averages, so there are higher increases and lower increases, some that didn't increase at all, some that maybe went down a bit based on something that they did on the property. So when you have, so all of your new constructions up on a couple of different roads.
Yeah.
So those properties were $700,000 houses, so it all is added into the average, okay? So capes and ranches were still your biggest hits, and they're the same increased property for that generation of people who have been there forever, and they're your 1950s and 1960s ranches and capes. They're the flipper special, they're your, your first-time home buyers, and unfortunately, they're going for $300,000 and $350,000. So I can pull styles and tell you what the style is with the average square foot. But now you're asking, can I do that for other communities? Is that?
Yeah, that's not possible to compare.
I can ask my assessors.
I don't know, I just
other
want something that people
communities,
can,
but when you start, I mean, one of the reasons we talked about this, putting something in the bill, the Board of Assessors was totally against that. Because when you start talking about averages, it begs people to come in and compare their neighbor's house. They don't understand mass appraisal. And it's a long conversation we have with people. So when we ask them to come in the office and we have the conversation with people one-on-one to explain all about it. So we're happy to put together a lot of information, and that would be good because we're going to do that anyways. But I think when you start to pick it apart, then people start picking it apart, and we'll have more abatements in the office, and we're.
Okay, whatever way you
Try
can
to
do it
reduce
so
that.
people understand and it's pretty clear.
I would like to see the same chart that you have here, instead of average tax rate, average tax bill. So, you know, the comparing a $17 rate to an $18 rate doesn't tell me anything. I want to know, what is the average tax bill in Holden, Rutland, and Sterling, and West Boylston? And that's something that, you know, if the average tax bill in West Boylston, I think I read somewhere it was going to be $5,600. If it's $5,600 in West Boylston, but it's $8,600 in Holden, but Holden's got a lower tax rate,
So you want the tax bill
the tax,
information
the average,
there.
I think, and that would
Okay.
be a lot more helpful to the residents to know, not the rate, not the value, what is the average tax bill that they're paying,
Okay.
this town pays compared to other towns?
So, but again, I don't know if this is correct, but so the Holden for 8,000 could be a 4,000 square foot house.
No, it's the average of all properties in the town.
Right,
And we're going to stick to that.
right.
Okay.
So it's, you know,
Just something that's understandable, because when you look at just that chart, and that's what people look at.
and I understand where you're coming with all of that nitty-gritty detail.
Right.
That's going to be information overload. If we can just have the average tax bill versus the average tax rate, because that's a number that actually means something. The average tax rate,
So we'll do the average tax bill and the average single-family home, because we all use the same.
Yes.
Information at the Department of
I've
Revenue.
been saying, every year I say,
Yeah.
I can cut your tax rate in half. I'm going to double the value of your home. You're going to pay the same tax.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
So I think in the last year, the assessed value for their ranch houses were high, right?
The land?
Ranch type houses.
Oh, yes, ranches and capes.
So what type of houses are, is it single family is high, or all type of houses are high?
They all increased this year?
Everything, including ranch?
Yes,
So that means, the property, house value is high,
yes.
the tax rate is high, so it's going to go high. Okay. So even if you do all those calculations, the
Right.
bottom line is, the tax rate is high.
So, I mean, typically, so your ranches and capes are pretty much the average. They're all around $350,000, unless they've done some improvements over, since the 70s. Pretty much, that's about where the depreciation is on them, based on the sales market. So there's a $300 increase in the tax bill is not unreasonable, because everybody pays a little more taxes for all of the services and everything that you're doing as a community. If you think that's fair, you think that's fair?
Okay, so, any other discussion from the board? No? Any other discussion from the public? Sure, everybody wants to know about this, so they're here tonight to ask questions. Okay,
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay, so what are the motions we need to?
I'll make a motion to have a single tax rate at $18.85 per thousand.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Is that the only motion we need? I always thought we did two. Didn't we do one to the class or something? I don't, maybe
Well,
not.
I said a single, do we need to do it as
Single
two separate tax
rate,
rates?
and that you've heard the excess levy capacity at $4,567.
As long as the motion's good, I just recall.
Do we have to add that, does that have to be in the motion, that we know what the excess levy capacity is?
For DOR purposes? Can you add that to your motion?
Do we have to go through the whole process again, or can I just
To amend the
Amend
I'll
motion?
amend the motion
Amend the motion, as suggested.
as suggested? Okay, there you go.
And then
And I
just,
just need you to sign in this form, the LA5.
okay.
Did we vote on it, the amendment?
Do we need to vote?
Seconded?
I second.
Motion is second on the amendment? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
This signature and a printed name, please.
All of us, every,
All of you.
oh, good, okay.
I believe next year you're going to all have to log into Gateway and electronically sign.
Yeah.
This year, the Board of Assessors had to.
John's never gonna be able to do that.
We'll walk you through it.
It's gonna go over your shoulder, what?
As we go through this, Nancy, I'm just, I see minutes in the agenda package, but I don't see an item. These August minutes, are they just there for reference for something else?
Yes.
Okay, because the executive session's in there too, and I don't see what the reference on that is, but okay. That's fine.
If you have any other suggestions on something that comes to you in the next week, or are you thinking about it, send them to Anita or myself, and we put together this paperwork.
Okay. Thank you.
Actually, meeting tomorrow morning.
Yes.
How about reducing the tax?
Okay. The next item on the agenda is Flag RV request to amend license for 66 and 76 West Boylston Street. Thank you very much. Just, who's here? And,
I'm Brian Riley from the Town Council's office.
okay, thank you.
Dale Kiley with Bourgeois White in Worcester, representing Flag RV.
Okay. Anita, do you need to bring us up to?
So at the last meeting, the Flag's attorney had stated that they had concern about the suggestion that they were overcount on the RV vehicles that were on the property. Their attorney had stated that we were incorrectly counting the other vehicles that were not necessarily Class 1, such as the travel trailers, et cetera. And he claimed that those did not count toward what was approved under the existing license that they have. We did say that we would seek our attorney's opinion on that, and so we've invited our attorney, Brian Riley, tonight to the discussion to continue that conversation about whether or not the Board of Selectmen have the ability to count travel trailers or other vehicles, other units on the lot as part of the license conditions.
Okay. You're gonna give us your opinion now publicly, because you sent us.
Yeah, I will say, I sent a written opinion yesterday. I had a phone conversation with Attorney Kiley this afternoon, and also shared my opinion with him. I think after our discussion, perhaps we're a little more on the same page than my opinion might have suggested. The one thing which he pointed out to me is that in looking at, what falls under the definition of a motor vehicle versus a vehicle, which maybe is not a motor vehicle, was that a motor vehicle is all vehicles that are designed for propulsion by power other than muscular power, including such vehicles when pulled or towed by another motor vehicle, which does suggest, as I think he was explaining to me, that if you have a trailer, maybe a camping trailer or something along those lines that has no motor in it itself, while it's sitting there, it's perhaps not a motor vehicle, it's just a vehicle, but as soon as you attach it to a pickup truck and move it 6 feet, all of a sudden it's a motor vehicle. I suppose that's not the most strange thing that the general court has drafted before, but I do understand where he's coming from on that. In my opinion, the board does have discretion in issuing these Class 1, 2, and 3 licenses. A common condition that's put on is how many motor vehicles can be kept on the site. It's there to make sure that the site stays suitable, it's not causing problems, it's not causing issues with emergency vehicles that might get on the site and that sort of thing. So I think it's quite clear that the board, to me, that the board can put a limit on the number of motor vehicles that are on the site. I would also argue that This could include trailers, even though perhaps when they're not connected to a truck, they are technically not quite under the definition. But I do think also, and this, my understanding, I'll want to let Mr. Kiley speak as well, that if what they're proposing is to kind of clarify, I know they're looking for an increase on the numbers, and they would kind of designate what are the clearly motor vehicles like the RVs, and the other vehicles that would be on the site, so you'd have a number for each. That way, at least everybody's on the same page of, do they have too many? Are they still within the limitations? And if this is pursuant to a plan which the planning board has endorsed, and if the fire chief is satisfied that it's not going to be an issue on how things are configured on the lot, then at least we're all talking about the same thing.
Okay.
If you want to add anything?
So if I can, just to clarify, so currently the license is for 125 units, we called it. So motor vehicles, trailers, whatever. And you currently have roughly 231 on the site. This, I have these notes from the last meeting. Is that correct?
I believe,
Units. Plates, non-plates, modded, non-modded, everything. You have 231 and we license for 125.
right, and the issue is the definitional, that's where the disconnect is between the licensee and the town. So if they're operating by one definition, you're operating by another definition, they're going to be in violation when they put something on. So it's my understanding that they had vehicles that were on their site for repair. Those are the plated vehicles that you referred to. So if it has a plate on it, somebody else owns it, and it's only there for repair.
And there were 46 at the last meeting. That's the number you told
That's my
us.
recollection,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, so does anybody have any other comments, and then we can hear from,
I think this has been going on for a long time with the, I think it's since 1982 or something, the original license was issued. To me, it would clarify it so much more if we could just count the number of units as motorized, non-motorized. I don't really care what it is, but it should be, you should have a certain number of units available to put on your lot. And that's, to me, that's the most clear, easiest way and clarified way to do it. So we know there's supposed to be 125 units, whether they're motorized, trailers, or anything, on your property. And the other piece of property has what, 25?
The other parcel has 25 at this point, the license says 25?
and you have 29 there right now, and 66.
Right.
And those are units also. 25,
Those are just trailers.
but it's still a unit. It's still, a unit still takes up space.
Well, I think we gotta clarify the motorhome and trailer before we make that decision. I think that's pretty much what we're.
And that's what I'm,
That's the decision before.
If I may, I think that's a fair point. And what I was trying to get at the last meeting was the town, I believe, can regulate how many units are on that parcel. But I believe that it's a function of zoning. And if you look at the license for 76 West Boylston Street, when they first got it, I'm assuming that this language just keeps rolling, right? You didn't make new language at some point. So I'm assuming that this is the language that they used originally. And it says that they'll allow 100 recreational vehicles on the premises, subject to zoning regulations. So I think that's what they intended at the beginning, that you can define how many units are on the lot based on what your zoning requirements allow. So in this instance, I would agree, just for the sake of clarity, that we say motorhomes and campers, whatever collectively you want to call them. Flag has submitted a parking plan to show how they would park them. It has adequate access and entryways. I believe that the fire chief has looked at that and has approved that. I believe he's in the room.
Yeah,
Like,
it
like
didn't
record on that?
shoot. Last week it was up on the TV, showed how many vehicles
So, if we just,
fire chief drove around looking for stuff.
we could just clarify the language and,
This is all we have. 'Cause that's all I have. That's the only map I've ever seen. It just shows the two properties. This is the one I had up last meeting.
The one I gave you showed, had like a number in
Oh, is
certain
that-
areas.
No,
like
that's
showed
it.
How many,
That's
oh,
it.
that's it, yeah. That would show you that there's, the engineer came out and paid him to come out.
Okay.
And he showed you like how many RVs are parked in each area.
Oh.
And.
Where was
you know,
that?
How you can still get through the fire lanes, you can drive down, you can drive tractor trailer trucks through, I mean, we have.
Why don't
There's
we,
plenty of room, what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
At that amount, about 200, we'd be happy with,
It-
it. We've been working with that for a long time, with that amount. Because through the years, in 2004, when we went for the license, they went, my cousin Jim Flagg got it for 100 down there. And what it is we had more than that then, so they, why would they give us a license for 100 when we had more than that back then? Doesn't make any sense, you know? If you look back then, in '04, when they gave you the license for 100.
It said,
And now we're sitting here again, and I gotta get a lawyer.
no, it says, it says in 2004, in my notes, 70 new and used vehicles, 30 repair.
Yeah,
That's-
but we had more than that then. Back then, the car was supposed to be motorhome, class 1 license. It was all figured out.
so if I may, we have, from what I'm seeing, I wasn't around back then, an honest difference of opinion on what the license says. The license is, I think, is for things with engines in them. I'm not in favor of saying, let's increase this license to 200, because 10 years from now, they can come in and say, we can have 200 things with engines in it. I would prefer to see, we keep the license the same, but we say the number of units to include campers and trailers that are on this, or whatever that language is, that are going to be on these sites cannot exceed 200.
I agree.
That gets us to where we want to be, and nobody can come back in and say, this is motor vehicles, because there is something that says, back in the notes, it was only a one line that says, and it looked like a one-off in the minutes, that says, yeah, the 125 includes the campers and trailers, and that's not what the license says. The license says 125 things with engines in it, as I read it, and as I think both of the gentlemen here agreed. So if everybody's okay with that, that gets us to where we want to be. It might not be 100% right as far as the zoning bylaws are concerned, but if everybody agrees to it, I don't see it as an issue.
Any other comments?
So you're saying do not define them as units?
No, because the law says the license is for motor vehicles, which is things with engines in them, or things while they're being towed by an engine. So, not a lawyer, but from what I'm hearing, the trailers that are sitting there are not under the purview of this license.
The original
Well,
license said recreational vehicles, didn't it?
and that's,
Recreational vehicles.
and that's what Merrill Flag views as a motorhome. Recreational vehicle is a motorhome, it's motorized, that's why he sought a Class 1 license. I'll put it to you this way, if Flag RV only sold camper-type bumper pull trailers, they would not be here tonight talking to you about a Class 1 license. So by virtue of the fact that they have a motorized vehicle on the lot, that's what puts them under the Class 1 license requirement. So as Mr. Crowley points out, I believe, and we would not be opposed to the, putting the restriction on the Class 1 license, that we say on 76, they have, they're allowed to have 125 motorhomes, something with an engine in it. And with the restriction that they have no more than 200 camper-type vehicles on the lot at any one time.
So that's 325.
No.
So that's for 76, that's 125
Plus
plus.
75.
No more than 200 total pieces of
Between the
equipment.
two, I'm sorry,
Two
yes,
So
between
if
the
we-
two lots. So if you're doing licenses separately, 76 should say 125 motorhomes plus 15 additional, 15 additional campers.
I wouldn't even do
So
that
that's-
because you don't want to do that because now you can't have 30 campers and 95 motorhomes to get to the number. You want to,
Right, 140. We want 140 on 76.
if you want 140,
Combined.
you need to, the license needs to be for
We're
125.
very comfortable with the two, I'm sorry, the 200 right now. I mean,
Right, but wait,
you
it's
get
two
three-
separate, it's two separate
we're not looking to
licenses
get
though.
any bigger. That's
But
our-
if we say the license is for 125, that means you can have 125 pieces of equipment with engines in them. If they want to have 140 total pieces of equipment, and it has 70 with engines and 70 trailers, and we put the caveat that you can only have 15 additional trailers, now they're in violation of the license because we need to define it as 140 total pieces of equipment or
And no
units.
more than 125 motorized.
Yes, yes.
Fair.
Something,
And that includes repairs and everything.
On 76.
76,
Correct.
that's where the repair shop is, right?
Correct.
So 125, 200.
And then 66 is currently at 25, and their plan says they can have 60. So whatever the difference is between that, and that would be 200 in the aggregate.
I cleared that up, sorry. Like 40 on 66 or 160 on the other, that's how we got it. That's how everything fits just right. Everything flows through, those numbers work good.
and that includes your vehicles that are there for service as well?
That's 76.
No, well, service doesn't count, it's a registered vehicle, right?
No, your attorney said that's on 76, and that's included in this number.
Yeah, if my numbers were backwards,
25 and
the
2.
160 total on 76 is what he's saying, his parking plan.
On 76, yeah.
Yeah, so it would be 160 total on 76. And I would even submit that if you wanted to include some language on the license, that they will be arranged in accordance with the plan submitted with the application, it would give you some kind of ability to make sure that those routes stay open.
160, instead of 125, you want to say 160 motorized?
No.
No, 160.
Total.
On 76,
Total,
160.
not the 200 you said earlier.
The 200 is between the two parcels of, it's two separate licenses.
Yes, two separate licenses. So we're talking on 76. The license
76.
on 76.
You said
Should
200.
say 160 vehicles of any sort, 125 of which will be motorized.
Well, no more than 125 of which, because you don't want to say,
Right.
because,
Correct,
Never have.
correct. Yep,
So the 200's out of it completely.
and then
So-
the other, there's 40 on the other.
40.
yeah, on 66,
And
there'll
what-
be 40 vehicles of any type, 25, no more than 25 of which will be motorized.
So in that case, how many we are increasing now, motorized vehicle?
We're not increasing any
No, no.
motorized vehicles.
Yes, you are.
No, we're not.
125, 125 plus 25.
No, they have
150.
they have two licenses right now. One is for 100 motor vehicles, the other is for 25 motor vehicles.
Yes.
All we're gonna do on that license is the one that has 100, we're gonna say the total number of units of any type that are allowed to be on this property is 160. It's gonna be in the body of the license. On the one that has the 25, the total number of units that are allowed on this piece of property is 40.
Okay.
Not increasing the number of motor vehicles, things with engines.
So you'll be, tomorrow you'll be 31 over.
That was gonna be my next question, because,
Right now you have
Well, I
231.
thought the service ones didn't
And
count.
that,
Temporary,
so that
that
was the next piece that we had the discussion on.
Do they count them in other places? I don't know.
I do have one other questions to the chair. So is this plan is, the entire site plan is approved by the planning board to park all those places for the record?
Yep.
Entire
Well, I mean,
site?
You were there, I showed
No, I'm just, this is for the record I'm asking. Is it approved for the, by the planning board, site plan review?
My understanding.
For
that-
entire site?
I didn't have to go for one, because
Okay, counsel, can you just answer, can you answer that question for him?
Yes, I don't believe that it must go under site plan review, but I believe he approached the planning board with this plan, and it was approved by the planning board.
I know what happened.
Not for the entire site.
Hey, 1 second, 1 second, 1
I
second.
know the answer.
Okay, 1 second. Raj, do you have another question or?
Not for the entire site, if I recall.
I was
It
told
was-
you have to go to the selectmen, and they're the ones who approve. That's what I was told by you and your board. You can look at the minutes.
A site plan?
He was on the board. They told me you have to go see the selectmen to get the approval for your license. I said, okay.
Yeah, the license is right. The license is right, but not the site plan.
License is right, but what I am getting to it is, so they are going to park 200 some vehicles over there. So do they need to get that, the counsel for him, he said that they did go to the planning board, zoning, so they have a proper zoning. So, but I don't think so they have for the entire site, they have an approval to park this many vehicles.
I think that's outside of the purview of this board.
No, but it's,
That's something, I don't think we can answer that. We can issue a license and say what we agree with. If the planning board has a determination that to park, and I don't know the bylaw for the planning board, but if the planning board says you're gonna park this many vehicles, you have to have site plan review, I think that's a totally different discussion.
Yeah.
Well, right now,
I would agree with that.
right now, under this scenario that you just told us, because we're not counting the plated vehicles that are being repaired. There's 46 of those there right now.
Well, they're
It
transient vehicles.
fluctuates, so it's intended.
I'm just telling you what you said last time, so we added that in. You said it was total of 231. Now, under this new, it'd be 246 you'll be able to put on the lot. Because we're gonna approve 200, and then there's 46 more repair vehicles. So I think there has to be a number on repair vehicles.
I just don't understand why it wouldn't be easier to put a number of RV units. It's recreational vehicle units. I don't care if they're motorized, non-motorized, what they are.
I don't mind
Just put that number of.
with an amount of motored.
We just did. If we go with what I just said, the license is gonna say 160 units total. It's gonna be on the license. It'll be there. Now, I think the next discussion we need to have is, what, if anything, do we have to do about the transient vehicles that are in there for repairs? We were told by the applicant's attorney that repair vehicles, you don't have to have any license, you can park as many as you can fit. Brian, do you agree with that? That the repair vehicles that have plates that people are coming in for servicing?
Well, I would say that Class 1 licenses in general, whether it's, new car lots, what have you, I would say that if those licenses have a maximum number of vehicles, that they're not taking into consideration cars that are coming in for the day or maybe a few days for repairs. I don't.
So you're saying, don't put that on the license? Don't put anything about repair vehicles?
I don't think I've seen that before. Generally, if vehicles getting dropped off to get repaired, it's not, there's not 40 sitting there for weeks on end.
Well, there were 46 at the last meeting. That's how many they had repaired. So I'm sure that must be 46 today, 45 tomorrow, 47 the next day, 30, back to 40.
If you're gonna regulate that, then you're also gonna have to concern yourself with how many customers come on the site at any given time. So if somebody comes on the site and now you have a motorized vehicle on there, that's a customer's car. What about the cars that the salesman and the staff have? So,
I don't think we'd have to do that.
No, at the same time, you need to have a space to park all those things. So 231, another 40 vehicles. Do you have a space on that? It looks to me, when you're driving by, the entire lot is full.
You haven't driven it, sure.
But the fire chief is here. He had no issues with the access to the lot, did you, chief?
Minor, and I was told that they were working on getting signs to make sure that the circle continued around so we had clearance through. Talked to Mr. Hammer tonight. There were cars parked where they weren't supposed to be when I was there with George a couple weeks ago. And he said one of the mechanics had inadvertently put it in the wrong spot. Again, the way that the lot was set up when I walked in, it looked like I could get my fire truck down a enormous path, circle around, and if those vehicles weren't there on day one or day two, I would have been able to continue with the fire apparatus and come around the facility. I do have an issue, though, with those repair vehicles not being in some type of account.
I agree.
I see his floor plan, and George and I discussed it, that one of those big units takes up a long lot. Two of the little pop-up trailers would take up two of those spots, because they're only half the size of the big one. And then that number count would go from 66 to 122. And that was the fear that, and George was talking about, you gotta define what a trailer size is. It's either a 1, 2, or 3, depending on the length of them, because you can either put 2 small ones, or 1 big one, or 1 medium one and a small one on one space. Because there's ample room that they leave, because those things have pop-outs on the side. They have counted, and again, I went on Google Earth, did a search, and this was before the renovation in 2014, and these numbers were up where they are now. So they haven't really changed, but the fear was, you give it 200 today, we just want to make sure that it doesn't go to 300 tomorrow. And they're saying that they're not going to do that because they're comfortable with the 231, but we want to just make sure it maintains that. So we have those paths, and as long as the flags and the Himmers are still the ones running it, 10 years from now, we'll still say it's 231 vehicles.
Well, with
Because the issue
repair.
is, we just, from a fire standpoint, we don't want one vehicle to catch fire, and they're very close together, and then you end up losing 2 or 3 of these vehicles, as we saw down in Marblehead with the boat yacht.
Right. So when you went, you were okay with, besides a few vehicles parked in the lane, but,
They said they were gonna get signage so that people wouldn't park there.
but under this scenario right now, they would have another 15 vehicles on that lot. That would never, it wouldn't, that would
They're
be,
probably, well, what's your number?
if they went to 200, there were 46 repair vehicles last time we had a meeting. So that would be 246 instead of 231. So you'd add another 15 vehicles to what you said was already pretty
And
tight.
again, I question the repair vehicles. Are they being stored for the winter, or are they there for repair? Again, they're kind of separated from the rest of the site. They're in the back left corner. They're kind of earmarked for that. The newer vehicles are up front where the people see them. Again, it's just where they're not in account, I'm afraid.
Right.
Business is good. Hey, bring them on in. I'll get to it next week. And then,
There's 250.
well, that's the concern, is there needs to be some type of an agreement with that repair vehicle number on top of the new vehicle number. Because he lays it out with sites, like parking spaces for each unit. And he says there can be, I don't know, for example, there was one that, I don't know, I have to look at my map, but, say it says 17 vehicles. Well, that's 17 of the big, long vehicles.
Trailers, yeah.
And we just want to make sure that, okay, it's 17 parking spaces. And the plan doesn't really lay them out with stripes and all that. It just says 17 are going to fit here. And if you do the math, which I added it up, it looks like they have adequate parking spaces for each one of those units. And as long as it stays that way. Because the fear on the smaller lot was, right now, it's all big units over there. And, you know, it has, say, 16 big units, again, okay, they want to change it up because they said they like to make it look different for people to see. Now they want to put all the little ones over there. We're going to have 32 little ones over there instead of 16 big ones. Because there was no differentiation between large or small, it fits, so we're gonna use it. And if that's the case, then we needed some type of an agreement to say, okay, it's either 2 small ones or 1 big one. We just didn't want to see, we got 60, they told us we could have 32 units there, and then we drive by and see 32 big ones there instead of 32 little ones. You see where I'm going with that?
If they did the 32 big ones, to continue your train of thought,
Yeah.
would that then pose a fire hazard because you wouldn't be able to get through?
They wouldn't physically fit.
So, and I mean,
The way they have it laid out now, in the smaller lot, it's pretty much laid out exactly where they are now. Give or take, you know, because we talked about some parking spaces that needed to be. And I think they had 1 unit going across. Again, it was winter time, they were moving them around.
so,
But it would work on that side, but it's gotta maintain what they're doing. And that's why we were questioning, how can it go up by almost double when they don't, that's what fits there now. How many are on the small one?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's fine, it's gonna be the same, but if you put a small one, it takes up less area, so you can.
And that's what George was trying to say, that he wanted to
That's
know.
why we
is
want
that-
the license for 40, in case we put smaller ones.
But
But
we
we've parked
wanted-
them the same way since 19, when the father opened up. I mean, nothing.
So we're trying to clarify it now for future, so it's not an issue.
All I've been able to let the fire trucks.
We're making it 40 units over there, but we didn't want to make it 40 big units. Now, they physically won't fit, but we just wanted to make sure that we weren't agreeing to allow 40 big units. We're saying, we're allowing you your 16 spaces, and you can, whatever you can fit on your space, either 2 small or 1 large, that's what you can
I mean, if
have.
they can't fit, they can't fit. We could say, I mean, they
Again,
could,
but we say 40, some guy's gonna push them back a little further, you know, we can make room, and then they'll have 40 big units there. And that's what we're trying to avoid. That, you know, this license is saying how many units. Doesn't say large or small in your licensing. It just says a unit. But that ties his hands from saying, I wanna have, you know, say next year the market's good for small trailers. He might wanna have the small trailers, but he can only have 16, because that's what the license says.
Right.
And he's gonna say, gee, 'cause I would really like to have my 32 there, but there needs to be something to agree on that, so that it's understood between everybody. Because as you
Chief.
stand now, you know, I drove in tonight, what's it called, Timbuktu?
No, they're not there.
What's the other one? What's the little shed? Yeah,
It's just our storage shed.
but there's small trailers in front of that tonight.
Yeah.
They're
They're
not
trailers,
on that plan
they're
though.
not motorhomes. Yeah, they are.
Chief,
Everything's on this trail, on this plan.
So the little house right in front of you, straight ahead, right there.
Yeah, right here, he's got them all marked, I can't see it, but.
But there's not trailer spots like the other ones. You don't have a parking area. Because is that in your count, Michael?
I can't see. I don't know, the engineer did it, and we came out and he counted.
But right here, we
think
don't have, there's no parking here. But there's little trailers parked here tonight.
Okay, why can't I park it in?
Well, we just said, we have units, and they're showing us where all these units are gonna be stored. And I said, okay, I can agree with this footpath. And again, these are more units. And again, is the little trailer considered a unit or isn't it? It's towed by a trailer, it's new, so it comes under a new unit.
Okay.
Is that in your count?
okay, let's just wait. Town
Doesn't
council,
make any sense. what you're saying.
town council, what do you, how do we make this?
I guess from what I've been hearing, my thoughts are that it seems to me the clearest way is, as Mr. Kiley said, if you've got one lot that says maximum of 160 vehicles, I think is the best term, and the other lot has a maximum of 40 vehicles. And you could put a cap on the number of motorized ones if you like. If there's a motor vehicle being brought in to be serviced, that's gonna be there temporarily, I mean, for one thing, I don't know how you would even keep track of that from day to day if it's on the right number. I don't think, that's why I think that's typically not addressed. As opposed to if somebody, and I'm not saying they're doing this, Flag is doing this, but if somebody wants to store their big RV there for 7 months a year when they're not driving it around, I think that's a different issue, because then you have to worry about if it's in the way for the emergency vehicles, or, you know, that's not part of a Class 1 deal or business, is long-term storage. But I think if we have the number on each lot of a maximum number of vehicles, and don't address the repair vehicles unless that's proving to be a real problem, practical problem. I think that's the clearest way to do it, and then the building commissioner knows what number he's looking at.
So 160 in that scenario would have been 206, because they had 46 repair vehicles that day. Could it fit? That's that's, John, did you have some?
When you say vehicles, do you mean units, recreational vehicles?
Units.
Recreational vehicles. I think it's a.
Yeah, no, I'm
Right.
talking about, recreational vehicles with motors, and then these trailers.
Just a recreational vehicle with,
Yeah.
any kind of trailer, which would include any kind of trailer. Do you have, do you do long-term storage there?
No, I don't have any storage. What happens in our business, guy brings a trailer in, we have to wait for the part, takes at least a week roughly. Sometimes they are there a week or two, waiting for parts. We want them out of there as fast as we can. As soon as they come in, we don't want them there, you know what I'm saying? But we do have service, we have 5 bays, you have 5 inside, a couple outside you work on, plus we got probably, average is 20. You guys came and count at the worst time of the year, because everybody used them in the summer, and then bring them all in October, November, December to get them fixed, because they use them all year. So right now, it's actually you come down, there's probably only 30 there, and we probably got rid of 15. And probably in the middle of January or something, we'll probably have 5 or 10 service ones. So it fluctuates so much that it's tough to, I just feel as though we got plenty of room to get through. We've been doing this for years, somebody's coming after Flag RV. That's all I gotta say, I'll leave it at that.
No, that's not true.
I don't know if that's.
Somebody came and said, we gotta go count your vehicles.
That's the building inspector's job, is to make sure people are in compliance with their license. And as I said when we started, I think we have an honest disagreement, and that's why we're here. Nobody's coming after Flag RV. We're sitting here and we're going through this in painstaking detail so that 10 years from now, when there's different legal counsel and different members of the Board of Selectmen, we don't have to go through this again. And we want to make sure we have it.
You make a lot of sense.
That's why we're here, not to come after you, to make sure we're all on the same sheet of music.
I'm willing to work with
And we
you.
put pen, and we're willing to work with you, but we want to put pen to paper to make sure everybody's in agreement, and we're not going to have to go through this again.
We can't grow, we're at max.
But I want to make sure that
We're
the
at max.
chief,
We can't park anymore.
okay, thank you. I want to make sure that the chief is comfortable with this. When you go on and you find you can't go down the paths and it's all bumper to bumper traffic, you can't move in there, what recourse does he have, counsel? I mean, let's say they're within this 235 repair, but all the repair are the biggest repairs, trailers they can get. And he goes down there one day, or the building inspector goes down, they can't go anywhere. They can't move, they can't.
I frankly am not a fire code expert, but that sounds like it may be a fire code issue.
Okay.
No access to a commercial property.
And now that I expanded the picture, I see where it says 32, up here it says 32 RVs. That means 32 units? Is that what that means?
That's how many he had spec'd out for that spot.
Okay, so, and then down here,
Follow that pattern, the truck would come in the entranceway, take a left, go down the center of the aisle, so we have access to
Yeah.
both groups of, we get to the repair, shop, we get access to the backyard, the back corner, we circle around, there's plenty of room for the fire truck as it is now. to swing to the right, we go to the back corner and come back towards the repair facility and swing by the side of the repair facility and come back out. And it makes like a big loop. And we go back to the entrance and go back out.
So, Chief, at this time, the lot is full, is that right? Or do you think we can increase, and then they may have a space for the increased license?
As Mr. Flagg said, he said they're at capacity, and I agree with that. With traffic coming and going, I don't think you can, give or take a couple units, what they have is about,
Yeah,
is what I'd be satisfied saying I'm comfortable with.
yeah.
The 200 and,
It's like 231, I think was the last count.
that was the last
I
count,
think
but
that's what Michael told me tonight.
that included the 46 repairs.
Yeah, it could be, it fluctuates.
Again, it fluctuates, they come and go.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman? Could I just ask a clarifying question of council? Brian, if the chief determines that there is a fire code violation, that the expected travel areas are being blocked, so he cannot get his units in there, can he then come to the Board of Selectmen and say, I'm asking the Board of Selectmen to, to place this license holder on notice that they need to resolve this situation, or their license will be revoked?
Well, I mean, one thing he could do would be to bring this, saying that there's a violation of the terms of the license to the Board of Selectmen, they can call a hearing.
Yep.
But I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, but I think, the fire code would give some authority to.
With even now having to do that?
Right.
Okay.
It's under the state fire marshal's
And we go
office.
to the owner first,
Sure.
try to rectify the
Okay.
situation and
Right.
move on from there. Then it would escalate to a further, you're in violation of the code, and then it would become a legal battle from there.
Right.
But I don't think.
But that would be a more immediate way to address it.
But it'll never be an issue, that will never be an issue with the license, because there's nothing in the license that talks about that.
Exactly.
Okay, any other discussion from the board?
I'll make a motion to
I,
amend.
Oh, wait,
I think, it's better to know how many vehicles can park in that lot before, increase the license or put a number on the license.
Well, I think if I add up all those numbers, it's gonna be 160. Is that,
176.
yes.
Yes.
So if I add up all those 32s, 23s, and everything, it should be
So,
160.
yes, then in that case, what about the repair vehicles? It's adding on to that number, right? Where those vehicles will be parked?
I'm not sure, so nowhere. So this 16's included here, which I know this trail is there, so all the repair vehicles would be in this area? Chief?
No, the repairs are off to your far left, down in that back corner.
They'd be all back,
Further past, keep going to the left.
Back
Keep
here?
going on the screen, down behind there.
oh,
The
okay.
repair vehicles are in that back left corner from what I've,
So is that part of the 32? Oh, that's,
no, keep going up.
oh, 18, okay.
Up in that section there is where the repair vehicles are.
Not those
They're
18.
not in those 18
To the upper
parking
left of
spots.
that.
There's more parking off to the side, which aren't in those counts, but those are the ones that he said he didn't need to have in the count.
Right.
And if that's what the council's agreeing, then those are the ones that are parked on the side, but he's showing where the new vehicles, the ones that are licensed, are gonna be.
Okay.
And they all add up to his new count number, and there's ample space there for those other units.
I'll make a motion that we, I guess it would be the new approved license because this is coming up. On the new license, we put a restriction on 76 is the bigger one?
76, correct.
76 that states that there will be no more than 160 units of any type on the lot. And on 66,
Well, do you want to put a limit on the motor vehicles on that?
it comes in, the license itself is for 100. So that means motor vehicles.
But they,
No.
I thought I heard them state that they wanted 125 motor vehicles?
It's 100 on one lot, 25 on the other.
Yeah,
correct?
yeah, I misspoke, you're correct, it's 100.
Okay.
Yep.
And then the other one, 25, the other one is for 25. So that and then the 66, is that the other lot?
Yes.
We put a restriction that says no more than 40 units of any type on that lot. That, I think, gets you to where you want to be and gets us
I
to
know
where we
what
need
you're
to
gonna
be.
ask, go ahead.
So how many are on the first motorbike? I don't care if it's motorbikes, I don't care if it's...
160.
I don't care if you pedal it.
160
160,
on the first lot, in total.
not counting repairs.
The second one
40.
40.
says 200. And how many do they have a license for now?
125, 25 and 100,
They have,
and they have
that,
200.
the license right now is for 125 things with engines and an unlimited number of other units. Because the other units are not regulated by the license because they are not motor vehicles.
It's not,
Yes?
Well,
That was the crux of the argument. We
yeah, and.
to avoid going to,
And I think neither one of us wants to get into an argument.
but that
over
was the whole,
things.
whole
So
crux
I think
of why
this is
we're
a-
here.
I think this is a better way to get everybody to understand what's allowed.
Okay, because in 2004, it said new and used vehicles, 30 repair. That was in 2004. That's what they asked, that's what was agreed upon, and that's what was put on the license. You know, I'm just saying,
Yep.
you know, it's in the notes. The application showing the breakdown on the number they requested, 70 new and used vehicles, 30 repair, motorhome vehicles, and 0 lease motorhomes. If that's, now we're just gonna say 160, doesn't
No,
matter.
And it'll be no, per the license, there'll be no more, the license itself is for 100 things with engines. So they can have 100 things with engines, but they can have no more than 160 of all types. So if they want to have 40 things with engines and 100 things that are trailers, they're fine.
Is that includes the service vehicles?
Service
too?
vehicles are not part of the discussion. They're not regulated. The service vehicles
licenses?
are not part of these numbers at all.
Service vehicles? Okay, so is that, any other, is that your motion?
Yes.
So 160 with a max of 100 motor.
The license is going to be for 100 motor vehicles with no, and then down here in the comments, no more than 160 total units on the property at any
That's
time.
76. How about 66?
The license will be for 25, and it'll say no more than 40 units on the property at any time.
So 25 motor vehicles, no more than 40 trailers and
Right.
everything. Okay, so is that the
I'll second it.
That's the motion. Any other discussion? No, yes, no. Council, that's good? That sounds,
I think that's an improvement over what it is now.
but it's, I didn't like that
And
answer,
if you
but
come back, wait till I'm off the board before you.
I didn't like that
I think
answer.
I think that's appropriate, and, you know, Flag's willing to live with the trailers being factored in there, and
Yep.
now the building commissioner knows what he's looking at, you know.
And the fire chief knows what he has to do if there's ever an issue. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
Thank you.
it's clarified.
Thank you, Brian.
We'll make sure, Mike's getting those ballots.
Yeah, you can.
We said no.
Thanks for coming.
Right now.
They don't have a repair license.
Well, hold on. We just started this, council, 1 second.
We had the discussion about the repairs. What's the nature, they don't have a repair license. What's the nature of the repairs they're doing? Do you know that?
The
They
type
don't
of
have a
maintenance
repair
work.
license. Do you know when they're doing repairs, are they doing repairs, draining fluids, or are they fixing engines?
No, if you look on the license for 66, it says repair of campers only, no automotive repair. So they're not repairing anything with a motor.
Good enough.
And so, and they don't want any of the leaking fluid.
That's on 66.
That's on 66.
How about 76?
They don't do any repairs on
They
76.
don't have any garage over
They
there.
don't have a garage over
They have a
there.
house, but no garage.
That was, we just wanted to, that was, because they don't have a repair license, so they're just doing camper parts.
And if you leave the license as is, just changing the number with the addition that you suggested, the repair to campers only remains a restriction.
Thank you.
Thank you, council. No, I don't know where. Consider voting to approve the alcohol beverage license for 2019. Did I miss something?
Town administrator, thing, you skipping over that?
Yeah, no, we'll come back to that in a second. Let me just, since I already read it. So should, there's no issues with any boards, there's no,
We do have a potential issue for one of the licensees. The Finders at 171 West Boylston Street, they are in default with a sewer payment, so that will end up being a lien that gets placed on the tax bill. Technically, as long as that tax bill gets paid, technically they would be in compliance, but we want to make the board aware that that sewer bill has not been paid and it will be applied to the property as a tax lien. Everyone else is fine.
okay, does anybody have any questions on that?
What we did last year, it's the same thing, right?
In regards to,
The tax bill. We did talk about last year.
I don't recall, does any, I don't know.
I don't remember hearing it. I don't remember.
Okay, so do I hear do we want a motion as they're printed in the warrant, or do you want us to read off the licenses we're renewing?
I can quickly just read
Yeah,
off the
just go
list.
through these here, we don't have to do the next group, we can,
Okay, I'll just list the name of the location, not the street address.
that's fine, just today.
Okay, so the Herald and Keith Post is for a club license, Wachusett Inc. is for an all-alcoholic pouring, Finders Inc., all-alcoholic pouring, Funny Guys DBA Recess, all-alcoholic pouring, The Mill, all-alcohol pouring, Steve's Pizzeria, wine and malt pouring, West Boylston Package Store, all-alcoholic non-pouring, Choi Lee's Galley 2, all-alcohol pouring, Kitsa Corporation, all-alcohol pouring. We have, I can't read it, Weibo Seafood Inc., wine and malt pouring, Ollie's Italian Eatery, all-alcoholic pouring, and Wachusett Wine and Spirit full package.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, a motion, a second, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, now we gotta go back to discuss makeup of the town administrator's search committee. And I ask that we look at this because right now we have 2 Board of Selectmen, 2 residents, and 1 committee or town employee. I don't know if we're not getting residents, there has been no interest for residents, so I was wondering if we go to 2 Board of Selectmen, 2 town employees / committee members, and then 1 town resident, but that's just my thought.
Well, a town employee / committee member could serve as the resident.
Well,
person.
then we should just say 3 others.
Well, I'm just saying, I mean.
No, I'm just saying, if we're gonna spell it out to residents, you would say a resident, no one that's on committees. That's what, I would think that would mean. Somebody that's not involved. But if you wanna just say 2 Board of Selectmen and 3 others, then we can decide whatever we wanna put in that situation. I don't know what the board wants to do, that's, I understood it as a resident being someone that's not, usually that's not connected with committees or groups. But I don't know however we wanna do it.
So nobody's, go ahead, sorry.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Has anybody from town employees come forward?
No, town employees / committee members, yes.
Okay, so we do have
Oh,
some
yeah,
people
we
that...
have 3 or 4, so we can look at those.
Okay, just curious, so...
So do we want to keep 1 resident, meaning someone that's outside that just might know the connection with the town administrator just from watching it on videos, seeing her at town meeting, you know?
Do we have any town resident applied now?
that's not on a committee or any type of group, I think the answer is no, correct?
Correct.
Yep. So we can still leave it and try to put the word out that we're looking for someone, or we can,
So how long are we gonna leave it?
well, we can go to the next meeting. And then we can decide at the next meeting if we want to keep it that way. And then, I don't know, whatever the board's thinking.
Yeah, I think we need to make a decision, though. You know, we can't hold it indefinitely. Nancy, can you, Anita, can you put people that are non-residents, that are residents that aren't involved, probably don't get it, through your blog? And Nancy, can you put it on the sign that we're looking for resident?
Sure, we have the item here, maybe they could change it.
So you wanna change it?
No, keep the same, but
No.
get the word out.
For tomorrow?
No, do you want to go two Board of Selectmen, two town employees / committee members, and then one town resident? Then all we're looking for is one town
It's
resident.
up to you guys, I don't,
The senior member has to decide, right?
I mean, if we leave it at 2 residents, we're not gonna make a decision before the next town meeting. We leave it the way it is, we.
Next town meeting?
Town meeting, town meeting.
Jeez.
Our meeting.
So why don't we say just 3 members?
Well,
Either the-
Hang on a second, if we leave it as is, and we come back here, and 2 weeks from now, 2 residents haven't said anything, then we can just change it and go, when we have the applicants in hand already.
See, yeah, that's fine. I don't, I'd like to go 2, 2, and 1.
I have no
Because-
strong feelings
yeah.
one way or the
I'd
other.
like to go two Board of Selectmen, which is done, 2 town employees / committee members, and then 1 town resident. And like you say, I think the town resident would get the blog. It would be someone that might not be connected to any
True.
committee, so I think that's,
I have no issue.
yeah.
But
so-
no one came forward so far, right, in the town residents?
Correct.
Oh, well, it's gonna be in the item now, so everybody's gonna apply.
Yeah, it was on the Facebook too. It was on
Okay,
the social
so
media for.
I'll make a motion to change it to 2, 2, and 1.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? I didn't make a motion. I didn't make a
No,
motion.
I'm saying,
Oh.
I made the motion, but I know you won't.
Can't. Consider approving the renewal of the 2019 business licenses. Now, this list we can, is there any issues with any of these? Some of them in the package were, that's just a mistake, they weren't backwards for any special reason.
No.
Okay. So if, I'll entertain a motion to allow the licenses as printed in the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? I'm just gonna do those top 3. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 3. Yep. I was gonna ask, I'll ask later. Next. Recognize the acceptance of a donation in the amount of $1,800 from Marjam Enterprises Incorporated, Flag RV, for the Celebration Committee, and approve expenditures of these funds for the Memorial Day program.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Motion is second. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Discussion on future fire station staffing need. That's why the chief's here. You're up.
Did we wake you up?
Come up.
I'm not,
You can come to the table.
sure.
You wanna cut some bodies?
I thought he is here for the flag RV.
Mr.
I
Chairman,
thought you were here for the flag RV.
I come for both.
Sure.
Okay, so really, the fire chief is here tonight to join me in just putting a statement forward to the Board of Selectmen about some concerns we have with the fire department staffing. As you know, in 2016, when the town established the fire union and developed the collective bargaining agreement, we established the 24-hour shifts, which provided around-the-clock coverage. And that was really meant to eliminate the need to have overnight EMTs stationed at home. It was meant to ensure that the town had professional, timely emergency response for all EMS and fire calls. And weekend shifts were used with per diem firefighters or call firefighters as needed to make sure that all the necessary shifts throughout the week were filled, and that had been working fine. However, since then, it has been much more difficult to try to maintain a reliable roster of call firefighters and per diem firefighters to fill those extra shifts, whether it's the weekend shifts or it's the shifts for when our full-time firefighters are on vacation, out sick, or what have you. Chief Welsh has been working very hard to try to build the roster of the part-time people, and it is just becoming very difficult. He has been successful in getting 4 new per diem people on the department, but so far of those 4, only 2 have completed the necessary training and clearance to work on their own. He's continuing to try to solicit individuals who might be willing to join our call roster, but he still has some strong concerns about the coverage that we have on our shifts, and in most particular, the shifts that are concerned are the Saturday shifts. More and more calls for those are being passed on to our mutual aid towns, and as a result, it leads to some degree of delay in access to emergency response, which is, obviously for both ambulance and fire, but it also leads to a reduction in the EMS call revenues for the town. So the other complication that we're finding now is that recently it's been determined that as of 2019, all Massachusetts cities and towns will be under the full impact of OSHA regulations. And while all of our department heads are looking at, what that means, and they've been attending the necessary training, the chief is still trying to get a handle on, what this OSHA compliance will mean and how it will complicate our existing staffing issues that we have. The chief has been analyzing, potentially the needed overtime costs that he's trying to build into the FY20 budget. We've been looking at the options to cover this, and, since it seems that Saturday is the key issue at this point, we've been weighing the projected overtime costs that would be needed to fill those shifts with full-time firefighters that we bring back on overtime against the concept of bringing in 2 part-time firefighter EMTs to cover those Saturday shifts. The estimated cost of bringing in 2 regular part-time people to cover those Saturday shifts, we're looking at roughly $55,000 in cost. And it would greatly reduce the expected overtime costs for the department and should be fairly cost neutral. The chief has been looking at grants that might be available for funding of positions. There is the SAFER grant that the town can apply for, but currently that grant program is not open. And the chief is at the point where, in developing the FY20 budget, he needs to have some direction in terms of how to move ahead. So I really think that, the town has come to a decision point at this point. The FY20 budget has to realistically ensure there's adequate funds to cover all of the different shifts. So far I've been telling the chief to plan for whatever the highest cost, worst case scenario is and build that into the budget. But the chief and I are asking the board tonight to work with the chief to find a decision as to the best way to address these staffing issues. With the town administrator position being open, we're suggesting that the selectmen establish a member liaison to work with the chief and the interim town administrator to try to look at this issue in more detail over the next few months. In the meantime, the chief is working on building the FY20 budget with that higher, I'm calling worst-case scenario, but we just wanted to put this on the table tonight and urge that the board establish that liaison. Chief can answer any questions that you might have.
What do you want to add to that, chief? Anything?
So, just so you know, our staffing levels on the call side have diminished. People have retired, people have moved away. People aren't walking through the door like they used to be a volunteer firefighter, EMT. I get a lot of applications, but they're per diem people, and they don't live in West Boylston. They live on the outskirts, they live too far away to respond back on the old type of system that we used for years that covered us. The people that we have, on the firefighter side, I have 6 call firefighters that are reliable to say they come back, and I have 3 full-timers that are reliable to respond back to calls. So I have 9 firefighters that would come back for calls. On the EMS side of things, it's a little worse. I have 3 full-timers that come back on a regular basis, and I only have 3 that live in town that are able to respond back to calls. And one of those is myself, you know, I'm a little further out, but as long as I know I have someone else coming, I'll come back. And then the questions that I need to work with the board or my liaison and town council would be the impact of the way that we have shifts now and the part-time status of some of these shifts. A person works a 24-hour shift, and we had run into this when we were talking with town council on the first contract, was, you know, the limitations on the number of hours that they can work in a pay period. And we really need to analyze that to say, are these people gonna fall into a different group that we need to offer benefits, or is there some other cost that needs to go with these? And Anita was nice enough to put it on her docket before she left, that I needed to get it before the board, because I've been back in this position before. We had an interim town administrator for 6 months, and as we know, things don't happen overnight. And I need to get this, at least funding, so that at least I know I'm not gonna come back to you in June and say I don't have any money left, because I've been paying time and a half, because the full-timers have been nice enough to come back and accommodate me on these shifts. And then if I don't get them, I'm either in the position of I have to try to cover it myself. We've been covering it with people that were able to do it from home, and we've kind of regressed a little bit backwards, and we don't want to do that. We like the level of care we're doing. We don't like giving calls away, but to do that, the system needs to be like revamped. We're trying to transition from a good old call department, and we saw how that was transitioning with the lack of EMTs to come back, and the cost of, you know, even implementing these per diems. I could get you a list of 50 per diems that want to come and work for us. Half of them are college students. By the time they get through our system, it costs us 100 hours in getting them on a shift to hopefully get their calls, because they have to do so many calls before the EMS coordinator or the medical director will sign off on these people. They don't live close enough to say, hey, shoot down on an ambulance call from home. We have a couple like that, but not the per diems that we have available. So we have to backfill a shift, so we'll pay an extra third person to ride in the ambulance, and hopefully they'll catch a call or two, and then they sit in the back and work with either the paramedic or the other EMT. They write up the report like it's real, and they give it in. These are all costs that have hit the department, and I don't really have any way around it if I want to keep going down this per diem thing. The problem with these college students is they come in, they might help you out, by the time we get them through the system, gone. They graduated, they've moved on to a career somewhere, or they go back to their hometown and be an EMT or a firefighter for their town. So we really, you know, we need to work with the union, with the department, with the town to try to come up with a solution. You know, yes, we'd like to have, you know, a couple more employees. A couple more employees, we can stagger out our 24 shifts, but then we'll be into a different problem, because now we're filling an 8-day shift. But we still have those second calls and the staffing levels during the daytime hours, even the nighttime hours. I'm working with Anita to revamp our personnel bylaws, to try to, you know, is there something wrong with this system that we use for the call people? Why aren't we attracting these people? Is it the money? I did a survey with my call people the other night, and I had them fill out a thing, and I read some of the surveys, and it was like, nope, I don't want any more money. Nope, I don't come back to calls. And then I looked at it and said, well, what are they here for? Honestly, it's like, and it's always been a money issue, and I'm working with, going to the personnel board to say, okay, we need to compensate. We used to compensate from 11 at night till 6 in the morning. We need to compensate 24 hours a day for those people to come back for a call. So if they have the day off, they're sitting at home, we have a second ambulance call, they might be more enticed to come back and say, I'm getting the same pay if I get out of bed like I used to, or I can just drive to the station and go on this call.
But Chief, this isn't unique to West Boylston, the part-time.
No, it's just.
Volunteer, we call them, when they're not volunteer, they're part-times.
Some departments are in a little better position where they don't run an ALS ambulance, they're not held at a higher standard as us.
We do, though.
But we do, and we need to have these people take the proper classes and the proper
Correct.
certifications to run with the paramedic, to be compliant with the state. they're already running as a PB waiver, which is a paramedic and a basic, which is, a tremendous savings, but again, a lot of times we're calling for another paramedic because the call warrants it. And we're either getting it or we're not. And technically, we should be trying to get another town in to get another paramedic for some of these calls.
Now, does anybody have discussion on this?
So the best solution would be hire 2 more people?
That would solve part of the problem, John. The other problem is we're still gonna be staffed with 3 people Monday through Friday during the day. And if you look at the new OSHA requirements starting in February, there's a 2 in and 2 out rule. So
Oh.
if 2 firefighters go in, there should be 2 firefighters waiting on the ground to go back in to cover them. Unless it's an emergency. That's the big word. What's an emergency? We pull up to a house, there's smoke pouring out of the house, there's a car in the, in the garage or in the driveway. We're assuming that someone's in that house. We're calling that an emergency. We're gonna enter that house with a pump operator running the pump, 2 firefighters on the line. They go and do a primary search. They look for that person the best they can and get out. Then you're gonna go to an indirect attack until you can get 2 other firefighters, either from our town or a mutual aid company, to arrive on scene, and then you go back to your 2 in and 2 out rule.
So what are you looking for right now? Until
Right
we
now,
can-
I'm just coming to you to tell you that I'm gonna have a funding issue if I keep covering these Saturday shifts with full-time people. I'm paying time and a half
Yeah,
for at least a third of those shifts. We thought we'd have these per diem. I don't have a great
yep.
pool of paramedic per diems. I have quite a few basics, but the paramedic is the key to the puzzle, because we just can't run a day without, we're just gonna not have it for today. That's not right to the taxpayer, it's not right to the people.
So this is,
And I'm either gonna be forced to force in my paramedic to stay, or bring in the one that was supposed to come in to cover that day. And we ran into these problems last year with the holidays, and,
Right.
the full-timers wanted a holiday off, and then, okay, now the guy that was already off, now I'm forcing him in, it was this big discussion with council on how do we solve this, and luckily, all the stars lined up and we got through it, but it's gonna continue to happen, Chris.
so right now you're telling us, just so we're aware, and we need to talk about this.
And again, Anita said, what about grants? I contacted
Yep.
FEMA with the SAFER. Holden just got 6 people, Westboro just got 6 people. I'm like, oh, wait, maybe the pool is back and we can get on that. I call them up, no reply. I'm on the help desk line. I go on the email, I send them an email. Oh, I'm sorry, that's not open at this point, and we don't know when it's gonna be open.
Okay.
Not the answer I was looking for, because, again, we were sitting here probably a year ago to say, do you want me to go for the SAFER grant for 1, 2, or 3?
Right.
Again, we missed that boat. Again, I'm still waiting for that again. It's just, overall, yes, we can hire 2 people. It's still not gonna solve the problem.
We need
of the
to, we
whole-
need to look at the big
Of
picture.
the whole big picture. And that's why, one, I need a liaison, like John helped me out with the contract, Kevin had helped me out to the one prior to that. It's just nice to have somebody on the board to help wander through these, especially, if we're gonna have another interim administrator, someone to voice, these concerns over with, pound out some answers, get some answers from council without wasting anybody's time. And it's just nice to have another representative.
Well,
And I told her it's the same thing with the finance committee.
Right.
It was really nice to have a liaison with them, and then mine's kind of gone away, and it's like, am I getting one back?
We
And
chased them away. Now, the other question I've been wanting to ask you, I had a resident that's been involved on the fire department for years that spoke to me, because Anita and I went to talk about merging services.
Yeah.
Now, I would like to move forward with you, and this resident said that he would get involved too, about talking about merging services with other towns. Now, I'm not, this is an early stage about this, but I'm saying, you're having a hard time keeping, in a small town like ours, they usually stay for a couple of years and some of them just leave to bigger departments. That's happened to us, right?
we're a grooming facility.
Correct. So,
Bring them in,
my,
we get them, either they go to the call academy, they go to the full-time academy,
oh, they get a job
they
at a
get
big.
their EMT, then, we've assisted with covering some hours so they could get their paramedic. Now they're really hot to trot, out the door they go.
Right, so I'm thinking if we look at some emerging services, a department of 5 with a department of 7 and a department of 8, now we have a bigger department. There's room for growth for these guys. And I don't know, I don't know if you would like to sit down and start the discussion. I know,
Oh, there's been a lot of discussions back in Jack Chandler's day that, about regionalization and, coming up with a plan. It's just, again, it's, like I tell people, I said, we couldn't even regionalize a dog officer for a long time.
I know, but do you think,
It's very hard to, especially where distance is a big part of our problem.
I mean, I know that these are all the discussions. I'm saying, would you like to,
I'm open for
Sit, and
anything,
we can
Chris, that's
get
gonna
this-
help this town and this department, because we have an issue that I'm facing, and I need to have some ideas, and I don't care, if we could come up with that and it's gonna work, that's fine. It's just, everybody's gotta be on board. But you
that's
saw how good that reception was of that.
the one we went to?
Yeah, it was they didn't even know you were there, I mean,
Well, I think police were involved in that. I think that was the killer, but after talking that, maybe, I don't know. I mean,
Chris, I'm open to any ideas. I understand my other towns, some of them are better off than me, some of them are worse off than me.
and I'm just thinking mainly for the guys, because if you have a department now of 3 towns together and there's 15 guys, then they look, okay, there's some growth here. We might need there might be some room for promotions. There's, I don't know. I'm just thinking that's why they leave, because the department's so small. So, I mean, this will be part of the discussion about needing more staff.
It's small, but it's not glamorous. We don't have a lot of fires. We have a lot of medicals. We're an ambulance service that puts fires out on the side. That's what we do.
But that's not unusual to most departments,
Yeah,
fire
but some of these
departments.
young kids, they want to go to a South Bridge. They want to go, to where, and then they get tired of that, and then they cherry pick and go back towards the funds.
But overall, the statement you made is the same with many departments, that the ambulance
And
is,
they're all at that point where they're.
And their fire department's on the
Call
side.
sides are dwindling.
Yeah.
The cost of keeping up a call side, again, like I tell people, you hand a guy, you want to be a firefighter, a girl comes in, wants to be a firefighter here. You're gonna go to the academy, it's 132 hours every Thursday, Friday.
Yeah, I
and,
understand.
Saturday night, and then they come back, and then you hand them a pair of boots, and you say, here, go risk your life for $13 an hour.
I know.
We've
been talking for years.
And again, people just have a different idea of what they want to spend their time and energy on. And
Yeah,
it's
I
not
don't,
the fire departments.
I don't think,
And that's why we need to change, and we need to move with it.
I think even if it went more money, the issue is still the same with
On
the
the
people.
call side, yes.
The people,
Again,
it's
and
just
that's why
different.
we need to transition into some other type of form.
You lived, you worked in town, you did everything in town, you were a volunteer fighter. That's just not the case anymore.
It is, that's the problem.
So,
So
okay,
again, I'm going on Anita's recommendation to increase my 20 budget, and also that to prepare you that come
well, we'll talk,
June, we might be here again, but again, I'm gonna have issues.
well, yeah, so we should talk about this before.
Reading this letter, I think in the short term, we really need to explore hiring 2 part-time EMTs to cover the Saturday shift. I mean, I agree with everything you said, if we could regionalize, it would be better services for the communities, for one thing, but in the short term, to fix your short-term problem, so you don't get guys that you're forcing to do overtime, which nobody wants to be forced to do that, I think we should explore hiring 2, would that be,
Well, that would be the goal, but I also need support I need to have counsel involved to make sure that I'm not violating any labor laws about that hiring, because if they work 2 shifts, they work a Saturday and a Saturday, they've done 48 hours in a 2-week pay period. It all goes by pay periods, a number of days, and when we were working with Nick, he had it all figured out, and again, that's why I needed some type of an expertise to tell me I'm not violating any type of laws
I
or
think we should-
requirements. And then it's, okay, working with the union to make sure that I'm not undercutting them, because we've already negotiated their contract, and then, I'm gonna steal the guy from Saturday, and he's gonna work tomorrow, and you're not gonna get the overtime. Well, that's not gonna be fair to them. So I have to work with caution on all sides, but also I need support.
So
That's the other
what would the
thing.
cost be if you hired 2 part-time? Did you give a number on that?
We were looking at it very roughly $55,000.
And what's the cost if we fill it with overtime shifts?
You had that number, Chief, right?
It's like 75 instead of 55.
Well, 55, it's.
So if, to fill a Saturday with basics, I'm budgeted Saturdays for $55,000. That's what it costs to have a paramedic and a basic, per diem or call, do that shift. If you get overtime from the paramedic or the basic or both, you're looking at 1.5 times, plus they get a higher rate per pay.
So it's cheaper to hire 2 people to cover Saturdays if the union will agree and
And
if all the
they're really-
stars align.
Find two
And they're really
people that are
part-time.
I'm willing to work every Saturday, I'm willing to do that Saturday. And again, we keep them on a tight leash and we say, okay, this is a 6-month probation, okay, this is working out, thanks, have a good day, and then we try someone else. That's one option, we can go with that.
How could you get 2 part-time people that are willing to come in on Saturday?
You
Whatever
have
they
pe-
do.
You have people out there that are in that lifestyle, that they have another commitment somewhere else, and they're some younger, eager person that's willing to work because they don't mind working. They like to be involved with fire service.
They're not firefighters more than likely, because they
They could
would
be,
work.
they could be, they could work for another town, but they want to get out of there, or this is closer for them than their hometown. So they come here, it's busy with medicals, but it's not a busy house, like you're not out.
Right. So why
You
don't-
can come and make some good money.
So from what Pat
As a
said, why don't we
part-time job.
have the chief sit down with Labor Council, or you and the chief, and then see how we can make this work? How the 24-hour, the whole issue.
And again, it's gonna solve that one issue of that Saturday. Again, I'm still looking at it as the whole week.
Right.
But the
We're just-
Saturday, you said, is your biggest issue.
Right now.
Of funding, and again, that's the big
Well,
issue.
Saturday-
Again, during the day, we had a fire, a woman came home to her house filled with smoke, right? I was at the school, went to the scene, 2 firefighters, and then 1 officer came back and got in the truck, so there was 4 of us. That could have been a potential house fire. And it was 12 o'clock on a Wednesday
How
afternoon.
many would you want to be there at that time?
You'd like that truck going out with 4, because you have 1 pump operator, you have 2 operating the line, and you have an officer behind them.
Okay, so the truck go out with 4, and how many other?
The truck should be going out fully staffed. If you look at our.
So you had 4 total.
ISO ratings, we're nowhere near filling the.
You had
the
4
quota.
total at that situation. How many do you think would have been comfortable? How many would you have been?
We would have wanted another truck for water supply,
So 8?
with at least 3, so we'd want at least 7 for a first response.
So we would have to hire a lot more people to make that
Don't-
happen.
Again, you look at the ISO, they want you to have 4 on every truck going out the door. The cities can't even do this.
Yeah, so.
Again, I know you got a busy docket.
No, that's
didn't wanna
fine. No,
waste
I
a lot of your
understand.
time, but I thought it was important, and
No,
Anita
this is
was
good.
nice enough to bring me up, so.
Go ahead, Anita.
I was just going to say that one of the other things that the chief and I have been kind of bantering about, what's the best route to take? There's also this concept of hiring a day officer that would be available, on Monday through Friday to kind of be an extra person. But, I'd like to extend our ability to work with town council to not only look at this issue of the Saturday shift, but also, just while we're having the same discussion, look at this concept of the day officer as well.
Okay, so is that'll,
And the bottom line is you're gonna need more money in your budget moving forward. That's
Yep,
the
okay.
bottom line. Yeah.
that's it.
That's why I'm here.
And, okay, so you're comfortable with that right now? Now,
Again, I wasn't expecting to get a check tonight, but
well, unless Pat wants to write one, I think we
That's
can write
John's
a check.
department.
again.
No, yeah,
I'm doing the best that we can with what we have to work with,
We wanna
but
make it
it's
work.
not getting any better,
now,
okay?
I'd like to sit with you, if the board's all right with that, sit with you and maybe that resident from town, and we'd kind of just talk about this issue about, I know that it's been talked about, I know it's been for the 15 years I've been here, we've talked about it. But the issues we're having here, I can't imagine all the towns around here are not having the same issues. Except for maybe the Holden with the bigger town, I don't know. But is that all right that we,
Some towns have been fortunate enough to retain a call department.
Correct.
They have a lot more people that live in their town that want to participate, they participate, and they just have a good crop to pick from.
I have,
I mean, just to the north of us, Sterling, they don't have an issue with getting call members,
they have plenty.
you know? We just
But
struggled
if
here.
if we ever look to merge some services, that call could maybe work here. I don't know the answers, but is it all right we can
And
maybe?
again, it was just getting to a point, at some points, we were abusing our neighbors for mutual aid.
Correct.
And we're trying not to abuse them. They're there for to help us if we need it. So,
we'll sit and talk, I'll reach out to this resident?
I'm always open. to
Okay, is
talk.
that all right with the board that I sit with the chief?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, chief, that's where we
All right, thank you for your time.
We'll talk again
Thank you.
soon. Discussion on fire department needs. DPW, quick one, cost estimate for flashing crosswalk signs.
A couple quick ones.
Oh, shoot.
I'll be real quick. Flashing signs, we have this type, it's it's like our stop signs, only it's a crossing sign. It flashes constantly, there's no button, it just flashes constantly. And those are $1,250
Aside? So
each,
two,
$2,500 for two.
2,500, okay. What about the one you push the button and then it blinks?
The same one with a push button is $3,500 for two. And then if you go to the other type with the strobe, the alternating strobes, you've probably seen those somewhere, doesn't have the perimeter lights, it just has two strobes underneath the sign that alternate flash. Those are the most expensive, and those are $6,400.
Wow.
And that's with us installing them.
So the 3,500, the person walks up to the crosswalk, they push the button, and the light starts flashing.
For like a timed amount of time.
That's the, to have it flashing
Oh,
all
is
the
it
time
blue?
doesn't,
No, I think it's like white noise, it's
yeah,
like,
you need, if we're gonna do it, we gotta do the, press the button.
stop signs I think are effective
Yeah.
all the time, because they're red and they
Right.
show up.
And you're looking
These
at it.
here, I think we get too used to them, it's nice to have the button.
So is that 2,500 or 3,500 installed?
No, we'll have to put them in.
In
I talked to John Fitch, and he said he'd help us with the conduit. We just have to dig a trench across the road. He put the drop in. Luckily, there's poles right near all of these. And,
So they're not LEDs?
They're not solar?
LED,
They're
but
not solar, I mean.
Yeah. We could do a solar at the corner of Gooddale and Crescent.
Are the solar's more?
No, they're exactly the same, because they say you have to put a converter in, so it's the same price of this model.
So hardwiring
I'm
is
sorry,
better.
John, what did you have something?
It actually, well, it's no maintenance. That's the nice part, no batteries.
So the solar is, you don't have enough light, is that why you can't use
Right,
it?
there's too much of a tree canopy over by the playgrounds, and then over by Gooddale, up by where the porta potty is, so to speak. There's a lot of trees there too. The one by Gooddale and Crescent, you could get away with a solar, but I think I'd rather do the,
Geez, we're talking about that one and then the one at the crossing the school.
well, there's four locations. There's two crossings at the school. There's one at Gooddale and Crescent,
Yeah.
all three parallel with each other, all on Crescent, and then you have the one up at Gooddale, tennis courts, roughly. Those are the four that we've discussed as a group.
And these
At the tennis courts? Oh, crossing to the Little League
From the
field.
parking lot over to the Little League field.
are all LEDs, so you know, you don't have to ever replace the lights.
Probably never, almost
Yeah.
never.
That's what they're telling us.
I don't know if the light department would put a meter on those things, we have to pay for them, but
LED, it can't be
I
that
don't think it'd be
expensive.
much.
So, okay, so we just wanted the cost estimate, or
You
we,
just asked for the prices.
so we're gonna talk about it, do we wanna do
I
something
think
right
you
now?
definitely should do it. I mean,
Well, where would we get the money?
I was just gonna say, are these Chapter 90 eligible?
I believe they are, yes.
So, I mean,
You're talking 35,700, 14,000 for four of them,
well then,
four sets.
it's probably gonna be some other cost. I know you said you're gonna do them, but I'm sure there's gonna be some
Yeah, there'll be
cost.
conduit, there'll be some asphalt, a little bit of concrete. but-
So this will be blinking only when you push the button.
Right,
Other times now, no lights, no
Yeah.
lights.
exactly.
There'll be just a sign that says crosswalk.
Yeah,
or
the
something.
crosswalk signs will be there, but it won't flash until you push the button.
I would make a motion that you do this because you can't put a price on kids' life. Someone's,
I'll second it.
Okay, so any other discussion? So we're talking about those three locations, and this probably won't start till,
Spring. I would request, instead of 14,000, say like Chris said, probably maybe 16,000 or 18,000, just for the
What do we have left in
incidentals.
chapter 90?
Chapter 90, we had 186,938, and we just picked up 58,007, I think it is. The governor kicked out a bunch of money just before the election.
Oh, gee, that was nice.
So we have 244,938.
so we want to go,
So I'll make, it John, why don't you just say not to exceed
$20,000,
$20,000?
yeah, okay. Yep.
okay, motion is second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Engineering on culvert.
Okay, engineering the culvert, that's the culvert down on, way at the end of Prescott Street. We tried to get a grant for it, because there was a specific grant, that's a specific kind of culvert, it's a large river, they wanted to put I'll make a long story short, we can get it. But now we have a small bridge grant that we are eligible for, and this bridge is actually considered a bridge, and it's in that criteria, and we have the community compact that we needed with the state agreement, and we have, I just got a bridge inspection in 2017 from the state, which helps us. So it looks like we got a good chance of getting a grant for that, so we're not gonna ask for an chapter 90 money right yet. We're gonna try to get this grant, it's due by March. Malone and McBroom are helping us with it, and it looks good at this point, so I'm gonna go forward with that. And the only other one I have is that Lee Street puddle.
Oh, there's a puddle on Lee Street?
It's a rumor.
Yeah.
So, the resident that lives to the right of the puddle, if you're heading towards Goodale, contacted me, and his yard is pretty well flooded lately with all the rain we've been getting, and sprinkler system's flooded, he can't blow it out. I was concerned that it's gonna freeze over the wintertime and cause damage. And I've got multiple calls about the slippery conditions when it's cold, and because it tracks down Goodale, tracks down Lee Street, the puddles, then it freezes overnight. And with all the rain, it's been worse and worse and worse.
Can the DPW do it?
No. But I'm requesting the engineering, we already got the quote of 18,000 for engineering, so I'm requesting the 20,000 to continue the engineering, and we have a cost of around 70,000 total for the whole job.
Including the engineering?
Including the engineering. 50,000 for the construction and 18 for the engineering.
Where are they gonna put the water? Where are they gonna make the water go?
We're gonna go down towards Goodale and down towards Holden, and then there's a town property we recently acquired a couple years ago from a resident. We bought it from them, and we can dump it off in there with a swale like we have to do with our best maintenance practices for the groundwater rules and all that.
Do you have to, how many catch basin you need to put? Two?
One on each side. That'll take care of this guy's yard, pretty much, and then also Mr. Amin on the other side has got a huge puddle and eventually goes over down his driveway on real bad storms.
So the water goes down the Lee Street, down the Goodale?
It's gonna go down Goodale, off to the side, down into the back behind Amin's house.
Oh, okay.
It's all town property down there, so that's several acres.
So you wouldn't start that till spring, would?
I'd love to do it now, but at least if I get all the paperwork done now, we'd start it as soon as the plants open up, the asphalt plants.
I don't think we have a choice but to do it.
It's getting to be worse and worse, yeah. Last couple of years it wasn't bad, but it's been dry. Now with this wet weather, it's getting bad.
Ultimately, it's gonna destroy the road,
It's already doing that.
and it's gonna cost,
Yeah, it's just, yeah, I hate to spend that kind of money either, but it's gotta get done. And we have quite a
Yes.
bit of money right now, which is good too. And we have another 230 coming next spring, so.
Did the town do anything to make this problem worse, or is it just the amount of rain that we've
We
had?
made it a little worse by trying to keep it from going down Amin's driveway. It used to all go down his driveway into his garage. So we did put a small berm on his side to try to limit that, which makes the puddle worse. But it saved him from being flooded out, but now it's all in the road now. So we need to put some drainage in to get it completely out of there.
I just remember some other residents in the past have come to us, and we didn't end up doing what we're doing, or
Yeah.
might be doing for this.
It's been a problem since I've
Problem.
been here. It's just that, like you said, with all the rain, it's just gotten worse. Now, the other side, with all the rain, really floods up his side. So the puddles are on both sides. It's in a gully. There's no drainage anywhere near it. that we can tie it to. So we have to kind of make our own little system.
Are they gonna rebuild the road, I mean, make it higher, or pitch it higher, or do something
We
like that?
thought about that, but then Mr. Amin's not gonna be able to get out of his driveway. He's gonna bottom out his car if he tries to get out of the driveway. That was one of the things we looked at with the engineer, to build a road up and tried to get it to roll down Gooddale.
So as Siobhan's saying, so have we had other requests like this that we've done nothing on?
Yes, yes.
And are they
Not a
still-
lot, not like now.
Are they still this, are they as bad as this?
No, it's much worse now. The rain-
No, the other requests
Oh,
from other areas, I don't recall
No,
them
we-
exactly.
we've pretty much acted on everything. I just
Okay.
have the Siobhan puddle we're still working on. But other than that, everything we've,
Pull in front of your house?
No,
a lot of issues that have come to me we've taken care of. I have one on 127 Central at the end, behind her house, with the ball field dumps into the woods behind her house. She'd like us to do something with that, but anything I do puts it on DCR land.
Right, but this is on the road.
Yeah, this is the
issue.
only
Right.
major.
What about the one on the half of Maple Street, one of the side road? There was, one of the person is complaining, all the water getting into his,
I think we've taken care of everybody
We've
else.
done some work.
Niagara front or something.
No, I think we've done everything I can think of.
All the water is going to his,
I recall talking about something up there, I thought.
Maybe.
Niagara,
We put
Niagara Fort,
Yeah, we put
We put aprons on everything that's come in, so,
okay.
as far as I
Okay.
know, we're all set.
So what's the dollar amount on this project?
70,000 total, 50 and 18.
So, I guess do I hear a motion on this to move forward with this
Well, for the
project?
motion tonight would be just for the engineering.
Okay, and how much is that?
I got 20 on it, it's 18, they gave us an estimate.
20,
18,
with up to $20,000, do I hear a motion for that?
Second,
Motion is second for engineering, any other discussion, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Didn't want any discussion on that?
No, it's quick enough so you can talk.
I do-
Thanks, Butch.
Just right down here, to the authorized.
is it the safe route to school, is it comes under you, the
It-
fundings?
I went to look at that, the problem is the schools aren't part of it. So they need to sign up for it, and I haven't got a chance to talk to Beth about that.
It's not under DPW, it has to go
No,
through
it's
the
got- the
school.
school has to be part of it, the school has to sign up and.
What'd you say, what?
It's called, there is a funding available for safe route to school, called safe route to school. So with that, if the school is under, school has to sign up for that eligible to
Yeah, so I
apply.
think they come in and they.
Or
do
DPW.
training at the school, and they come in and do little trainings and.
Do they give us money, are you saying
Yes.
for money for the lights?
No,
Well,
lot of things.
maybe more, I was thinking more sidewalks, but maybe money for the lights.
So are they moving forward with trying to get that?
Not yet, not that I know of, I have to get a hold of them. I went to a thing recently and I saw that, and I called them and they said they weren't part of it, so now.
Okay, so,
Try and convince
Raj,
them
do you
to
want,
get
can the
involved.
town administrator reach out to them and tell them about this and see if they want to
I can stop.
discuss it? Yeah,
We're meeting
just,
tomorrow morning on
Oh,
engineering.
she's coming to that?
No, but we can
Okay.
talk about.
yeah, if you can just let them know that it's
Yeah,
out there and
It
we-
is something I wanted to bring up, yes. I went
Okay.
to a thing on it, and there is money for sidewalks and stuff like that.
you're good?
I'm good.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Town administrator,
I will make my report very fast tonight.
time's up.
I'll bullet this. For our legal expense report, so far to date, as of the October invoices, we spent 32% of our FY19 budget. The Brasi case is still an ongoing matter, so, we need to, the town will need to be cautious and watch that as it moves ahead. That hearing date's been delayed until spring of 2019. The North Main Street 40B case has been settled. And there may be some minor legal expenses associated with the, town administrator hiring, but just also, you've got both the DPW and the cemetery union contracts coming up for negotiations beginning in February, so there will be some legal expenses associated with those as well. On the grant tracking, to date for FY19, we've been awarded just over $76,000 in grants for various town departments. That does not include the grants that may have been received by the school yet that we don't have recorded into the system. And just wanted to point out that all of these grants were developed and applied for by our staff on behalf of their respective departments and duties. None of these involved use of the volunteer grant writers. We do have grant applications underway, as Butch was just describing, for the state's small bridge program to see if we could get funding for that Prescott Street culvert, and we'll keep you updated on that one. Other things I just wanted to put out.
Just, any we've applied for and didn't get in the last, since the last
past month,
time?
since I gave the last report, no. I mean, I
Okay.
did tell you at the last report that we applied for that IT grant, we did not receive it.
Okay, yeah.
So, yeah. On other updates, I wanted to start getting the word out about the holiday hours. That week of Christmas through January 1st, we will have various town departments and offices that'll be operating on a modified schedule due to staff taking their available vacation time. So they're trying to make every effort to leave their offices open as much as possible, but we are encouraging people who need to come to town hall for business during that holiday week to call their offices in advance, just to make sure that that office is open. Offices will be, changing their outgoing voicemail messages and posting their doors to give details about the modified hours that they'll be having. But I wanted to start getting the word out to the public about office hours during that week.
Will this be posted on the town website?
I'm going to post a general notice. I'm not going to post specific office hours because they may change for whatever reason. But the important thing is to encourage people to call the office before they come. Wanted to let the board know that the Townwide Planning Committee held their second public forum last night to review 3 additional chapters for the new comprehensive plan. That comprehensive plan is meant to augment our 2005 master plan. It's meant to identify some key community issues and goals that the various boards or committees will want to work on over the next 5 years. So far, the chapters that we had reviewed last night were financial conditions and strategies, historic and cultural resources, and open space and recreation. We're looking for public comment on those. We had a few people attend last night, but not many. So those chapters are on the website, and I really want to encourage people to take a look at them. This is kind of setting the tasks for the town over the next 5 years. So it's important to get public feedback on those. So I wanted to remind people that they're there to look at and to comment on. And the committee is going to be meeting again in January. Just wanted to let the selectmen know, by committee charge, the chairman of that committee is the town administrator. So until such time that you choose a new town administrator, Norma Chanis, a member of the Townwide Planning Committee, has agreed to be the interim chair for that group in the meantime. And that's it for my fast report.
Okay. Concurrence on the following records access officer reappointments effective January 1st, 2019 for a term to expire December 31st, 2020. Colby Fisk, Fire Department, Anthony Papandrea, Police Department, Elizabeth Schiper, School Department.
So moved. Second.
Motion and second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Concurrence on the reappointment of Elaine Novia as Town Clerk effective January 1st, 2019, or a term to expire January 3rd, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Do we have any discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Concurrence on the appointment of Tony Sanders to the Celebration Committee effective December 7, 2018, for a term to expire on April 30th, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
A motion is second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meetings and invitations and announcements, I have none. Future agenda items, selectmen's reports, I have none.
You don't look at me?
I have none.
It's December, so I gotta say, if you have a fire hydrant that is near your house, take a shovel and dig it out.
It's not.
Nobody else is gonna do it. You're gonna help yourself and your neighbor.
Should I say it's not good snow?
That's funny. Aye.
Okay, thank
Only
you.
for the employees. You don't
Entertain a
need
motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You don't want to invite the entire town. That's only for the employees.